This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Commemorating the 10th anniversary of the greatest comic book movie of all time, the Hard-Traveling Fanboys celebrate Dark Knight Month.
And now, making our way down the aisle at a combined weight of 572 pounds, Greg Phillips, Nick Duke, and they are accompanied to the ring by the manager, Todd Weber. They are the Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Todd, the manager Weber. And these are
the Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Welcome to our show.
You're damn right. And with an introduction like that, I don't even need to go through the usual rigmarole. But you know what? I will anyway. I am Greg Phillips. We are in the L-shaped studio in beautiful Ho-Ho-Loon Plaza in serene Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And I am joined, as always, by the host with the most, Nick Duke. Nick, how are you on this fine eve?
I'm doing all right. The most what exactly? The most belly fat? The most butt dimples? The most... what exactly do I have the most of, Greg?
Let's just say the most respect from the listening audience.
Oh, you're clearly setting me up for something. You're buttering me up.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm in a good mood today because we are being joined by the manager of champions, the man who represents Place to Be Nation Pop on the West Coast, the man known only as Todd Weber. Todd, thank you for clearing time out of your day to not only join us, but to travel here to the L-shaped studio in Vancouver. I know this was quite the drive for you.
Well, one of the benefits of being older is that I have an AARP discount with Hertz Rent-A-Car. And so I am able to rent a car for mere pennies a day. And I was able to make the trip in just a day and a half. I stopped over in Portland. I had a nap. I had some hipster coffee, drove hipster donuts as well, drove the rest of the way to Vancouver, British Columbia. And here we are in the beautiful and serene studios. This plaza is really something.
It really is. The plaza, I feel like, has undergone the most transformation. You know, when it started, it was actually, not much, honestly. It was the Ho-Ho-Loon Plaza. We didn't have much money to actually organize it, but we spent a lot of time developing it, and we've designed it in a way that we think would make Ho-Ho-Loon proud, in that it exists. So I think that's a big step. Nick?
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day from where we started. You know, the podcast and the plaza itself has come so long in these over 2 years that we've been on the air, and perhaps we'll have something to announce in that regard for our listening audience at some point in the near future.
When I made arrangements with the Canadian government to furnish this space for us over 2 years ago, I could not have imagined it would turn out as well, as neatly manicured, as beautiful and serene as this particular plaza is. We are thankful to the Canadian government, both for their health care and for the tax benefits, the tax breaks of letting us do this show here. So many things have happened, but we're just proud and thankful for this partnership.
Now, what we have to be worried about are potential tariffs on Canadian podcast exports. That would throw everything into a tizzy, but that's another problem for another day.
Right. And the thing is, we are popular, as you guys know, in Vancouver because we have filled the void that the Vancouver Grizzlies left all those years ago.
Right.
And it's my pleasure to do it. I know it's you guys' pleasure to do it, and we're glad to help out however we can.
You know, and that's one thing that I've heard on the streets of Vancouver when I'm out walking around is I've heard it said, "Who needs Vince Carter when you have the Hard-Traveling Fanboys?" And yes, I know Vince Carter played for Toronto, but it doesn't matter. No other relevant.
He was on the Grizzlies in Memphis, but not in Vancouver.
That's what I was driving around that. I was circling back around, but never mind. Let's move on.
Well, what if you had a bear in a fur coat?
What if you had a button on a fur coat?
That would be grizzly enough.
Oh, what if you had George Big Country Reeves? Was that his name, George? I don't remember. I just remember Big Country Reeves.
Brian Reeves, big old Reeves, cheesy white kid. Yeah,
yeah. He was one of a host of large white unathletic centers back in the day.
Greg Ostertag from the Utah Jazz.
Oh,
good Lord!
Don't get Greg worked up.
Good Lord! Every center ever named Greg played for the Utah Jazz, and that of course encompasses Ostertag and Foster. But we're not doing the NBA team podcast today.
Before we move on, let us not forget that the Jazz drafting Grayson Allen is the most Utah Jazz thing of all time.
100%.
I'm not sure quite what you're trying to say there.
You know exactly what I'm trying to say.
Gordon Hayward,
John Stockton, Greg Ostertag,
Bobby Hansen,
Andre Karolinko,
Jeff Hornacek.
White people.
Horny. Anyway, that beside the point. We're not here to talk about the NBA.
If the Utah Jazz were to win an NBA championship, a White House invite would come quickly.
I'm not following what you're saying there, Nick. You have to put it into more clear terms for me.
We're just saying there's a lot of white people in Utah.
There are. You're right. And they do like to draft a certain style of player, I would say. But that being said, the Jazz are 50 times better off than the Hawks are right now. So we'll just leave it at that and move on to why we're really here today. And that is to celebrate the 10-year anniversary this month of what many people consider to be the greatest of all superhero films. We're certainly in the running for that title. And that's Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. It, of course, came out in July 2008. And so we here at the Hard-Traveling Fanboys are here to celebrate Dark Knight Month. We are dedicating an entire month to Christopher Nolan's masterpiece. And to do that, we're going to be taking a movie-by-movie look at his three-part epic, if you will, of the Batman series. And we will conclude the month with a countdown of our favorite scenes of the Dark Knight trilogy. And, of course, Mr. Weber is here to join us today. And to paraphrase everyone's favorite band, Coldplay, we've got to take you back to the start of this whole franchise. And so today we are gathered to talk about a little movie that came around in 2005 and completely reshaped the Batman franchise. And that, of course, is Batman Begins. So, Nick, I know that it's the 10-year anniversary of The Dark Knight, but we've got to kind of save that for next week because here we have to put ourselves back in the mindset of the aftermath of a movie that we've talked about on our airwaves before, Batman and Robin in 1998. Because after that movie, we didn't see a Batman movie until 2005. So there's a huge, huge gap there of waiting and waiting and waiting because Batman and Robin frankly left the franchise in a really bad way. Nick, let's give the people a little bit of the background on the state of the Batman movies after Batman and Robin in 97.
That could almost be a podcast unto itself. There were so many so much rumor and innuendo floating around out there. There was the rumor that Joel Schumacher had been pre-contracted to do a fifth Bat film right after Batman and Robin. Some rumored titles that have been thrown out there over the years are Batman Triumphant, I think, is the most common one that you hear. But that obviously didn't wind up happening because of the response to Batman and Robin. And then there were several different iterations that were in development at one point or another over the years in between 1998 and 2005. Most notably, I guess you could say, was a rumored Batman versus Superman movie back then that was to be directed by Mick G, of all people, and that didn't wind up happening. You had Darren Aronofsky pitching a very different take on Batman Year One that didn't wind up happening. There was a Batman Begins rumor, a Batman Beyond rumor that was bandied around there for a while. There were, 5 or 6 different versions of a new attempt at bringing Batman to the big screen that were bouncing around out there. And for me personally, my own response to the Schumacher films, combined with all the drama that was going around surrounding the franchise, I remember at a certain point I just gave up. And I thought, you know what, they've screwed it up. There's no way they're going to make another good one. And when Chris Nolan finally got this gig, at that point, I had not seen Memento. I had not seen Insomnia. I went, oh man, they just gave it to some unknown. They're going to screw it up again. And I swore off following the development of this movie to the point where I didn't actually see the trailer for this. I remember sitting in a movie theater the first time I saw this trailer and not knowing what it was until the Batarang hit the ground. There was I don't know if you guys remember this trailer, but it kind of is just looking at that shipyard scene where he's silently picking people off, and it's shot in such a way that when you're watching the trailer, I was like, oh, this must be a new horror movie or something. And then like the light gets busted out, and you hear something hit the ground, and the camera pans over, and you see the Batarang. And I remember sitting in the theater and losing my mind because I was like, oh my god, this looks awesome, because it looked like a take on Batman we had never really seen before.
It was a post-X-Men Batman. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think, I guess we had both X-Men and X2 at this point.
We had X-Men, right. X2, Spider-Man, and Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. So
plus,
we've seen some
Blade and Blade 2 as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. Blade overlapped with Batman.
True, right.
Blade 2, which is the best one of that trilogy. Almost unequivocally, everybody agrees about that. We'd seen good superhero films. I had zero expectation for this film. Zero. I was not familiar with Nolan. I had seen Insomnia, and it was a fine movie, but I thought it was a good movie because of the performances of Al Pacino and Robin Williams. I didn't think much of the direction. I didn't say, oh, I'm going to watch this director. Mm-hmm. But I saw this movie on my honeymoon in 2005 and blew me away. Literally. Not literally, but it was tremendous.
You recovered nicely, Todd, I have to say.
It was a tremendous surprise, and I was very, very encouraged and optimistic for the franchise after this film, and very thankful that DC went in this direction with a very serious take on Batman.
Yeah, Nick mentioned that he deliberately wasn't following the development of this film. On the other hand, I was following the development of this film almost obsessively because, again, it had been so long, and Batman was a character I had a particular affinity for after Hush got me back into comics. Batman was one of the very few titles I was pulling at that time, and I really wanted them to get this right. And so I was following the development of this movie just extremely closely. And you guys know how kind of hesitant I am about origin stories in general. So the fact that I knew it was going to be an origin story, that was kind of like, we hadn't seen it on film, I guess, in terms of Batman's origin really done to fruition. But it just kind of made me like, oh, I hope it's not boring. I hope it's not trudging over stuff that I've read so many times. And I was kind of taken aback when I saw the Tumblr, their version of the Batmobile. I remember when the images of that leaked online, actually. I remember Russell and I sitting in our school newspaper office, and I was like, oh my gosh, that doesn't look sleek. That doesn't look cool. That looks like a military tank or something. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting.
Right.
But as we got closer to production, I was worried about that. I was worried that it was going to focus on being too practical almost. And all of those worries kind of went out the window when I finally saw it. But Todd, how were you following the production of this at the time? Being a longtime comic book fan as well, what was your level of interest in you mentioned you had no expectations for it.
No.
How closely did you follow it going into it?
I guess I saw the occasional thing on MySpace about it, or
oh, wow.
Read some of the magazine excerpts in Wizard, perhaps talking about it. But again, no expectations about it. I had the occasional eye roll when I'd see something like the Tumblr, and I'm like, well, Batman Begins, that should be year one, man. It should be a real solid adaptation and a strong origin. But after the Schumacher films, I just kind of, boy, what are they going to do with Batman? We don't know. We don't have any clue how good this can be or how bad this can be. So let's just hope the best.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, folks, we are on the portion of this show off the page, which I don't think I mentioned at the beginning. We're going to have 3 special off the pages this month. And we're at the portion of the show where we like to invite you, the audience, to watch the movie along with us if you'd like to. Now, we may or may not get through the entire thing. I doubt we'll get through the whole movie tonight. But what we like to do is sit down and watch this to kind of remind us of things, from talking points to kind of guide the conversation a little bit, and a little bit like a live commentary. So if you'd like to watch along with us, feel free to pause the podcast, go and find your copy of the movie and put it into your DVD, Blu-ray, VHS, Betamax, Laserdisc player of choice. And I don't know that this was actually released on Laserdisc.
I think it's also on Netflix currently, if I'm not mistaken.
It is not. I checked.
No, really? I thought it came to Netflix at one point.
It may have at one point, but it ain't on there now.
If you're listening to this in August or in the fall, perhaps,
right.
you might have the new DC Universe streaming service, which may or may not have this on there, depending on the rotating nature of the content, which we'll talk about in the second half of the show.
That's true. And other than that, as far as I know, there is no way to stream it right now. I haven't found any way through Roku. But certainly if you find a way, or if you find a less than up to snuff copy of it, then you can watch it along with us, and we'll allow you to do that. Meanwhile, we've got ours paused, and we are going to hit play in 3, 2, 1, play. Or if you're my PlayStation, a half-second delay. Now, let's all. What do you guys make of this WB logo here? No, I'm just kidding. Todd hit on a point that I want to touch on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. I didn't remember that actually about this. When I was watching it earlier, I only watched a little bit of it earlier today, but I didn't remember it beginning in black and white like this. But
setting a very noirish tone from the get-go. I think that's an intentional selection. On
I missed that DC logo.
Me too.
Me too. Love that DC logo.
Especially since they can't stop changing it lately. You know, that was the logo for what feels like 15 years, and now it's every time you turn around, there's a new logo.
That opening with the bats kind of flying together to form the symbol, always been a big fan of that. Very cool, and even from the moment you see that in the theater the first time, you're kind of like, okay, maybe this is going to work.
Yeah.
You know? So Todd hit on a point that I want to touch on here. He mentioned that he was glad that this movie was a serious take on Batman after what we had gotten in Batman Forever, particularly in Batman and Robin, which was a lean into the camp. And even you could argue in the first 2 Burton films, which while they are serious in many ways, they also have heaping helpings of camp in them.
Yeah, they're Tim Burton movies. They have dark tones and sensibilities, but they use that to do some pretty goofy things at times.
Right. And that's not being critical necessarily.
No, that's just his style, you know.
Right. This is taking things in a much different direction, a Frank Miller-inspired direction, and even arguably as much as Frank Miller, maybe a Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale-inspired direction. Todd, you brought the point up earlier, so kind of talk about why you felt it was important for them to go in this direction when they were relaunching this franchise.
Well, for those of us who were alive in the late 90s, there was such a strong backlash to the terrible reception that both Batman Forever and Batman and Robin got from the hardcore fan community. I think the mainstream was a little kinder to movies like Batman Forever. I mean, that was a big hit. But the fanboys hated the shit out of these 2 films. And Batman Forever gets worse every time I watch it.
Yes.
I'm reminded of
totally agree.
What on God's green earth is going on here? So
what on God's neon green earth?
Yeah, but Chase Meridian. However, there was
vroom.
Still the best. Still Bat I'm trying to think the appropriate word, but the bat femme fatale. How about that?
I don't know. Give me Pfeiffer in that leather catsuit.
Pfeiffer in the
I'll take Basinger actually.
Ooh.
So we're all divided on that.
I'm a sucker for the catsuits. I would Pfeiffer and then Hathaway probably.
Basinger ended up so crazy in real life that it informs the viewing of that. But at the time, and 9.5 weeks, etc. Yeah.
And the
but I hate
Alec Baldwin.
That was not a good movie.
No, but when you're 10 years old, it was.
Cool World as well.
This is a cool line, by the way. I don't need protection for them. Get over from the jump that Bruce is kind of a badass in his own right here.
Oh, this whole opening! I had forgotten how much I loved this opening until I watched it earlier, and you established the badassery of Batman right out of the gate, and have him show a side of viciousness that, to my knowledge, we had never seen out of Batman on film. I don't remember Keaton's Batman even ever being just outright vicious to the degree that he's getting in the mud, literally dragging guys into the mud and breaking kneecaps and breaking arms and breaking noses. Really a different approach. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Todd. Carry on.
No, it's okay. I also like that they're not telling a linear chronological version of this. We cut from the greenhouse, the Bat Cave, the Bat Pit, to Bruce Wayne, who has left the country, who is finding himself. So this is kind of the Batman lost years. There aren't a lot of documentation in the comics about. So I kind of like that. I'd never heard of Henri Ducard, which is maybe a red flag. Or I guess at the time I heard that Liam Neeson had been cast as Henri Ducard, and so I researched that character, and okay, that's kind of a mentor for Bruce as a detective. So I had certain expectations for the character, which were usurped later.
Excellent misdirection.
Yeah, although the goatee should have been a red flag.
None of us saw it coming though the first time we saw the movie. Because I agree that goatee is natural there.
I wonder if part of it maybe could be that Ra's al Ghul as a character didn't have a lot of mainstream exposure to this point. I know he had been on the animated series, but I think it caught a lot of people off guard because nobody was really thinking of Ra's in terms of that A-list Batman villain category. I know the hardcore fans who had grown up, reading the Denny O'Neil, 1970s stuff probably did. But a lot of people, if you asked them to name Batman villains, they would say Joker, Riddler, maybe Penguin, Poison Ivy, Catwoman, that kind of thing. And Ra's probably would have been somebody at the time that wasn't really on the tip of a lot of casual fans' tongue.
And knowing that the Scarecrow had been cast, I expected this would be a Scarecrow.
Everyone did. Yep.
And Ra's would just be kind of a ancillary villain. But again, the structure of the film did something different. All right, so he's
also. Let me say one thing real quick, just before we get into too deep into this podcast. You're going to bitch at us for the pronunciation of Ra's al Ghul. Go ahead and send us your hate tweets. That's at JR's BBQ. Yeah, thank you.
I've always said Raj just because I've said Raj, but I don't know where I got that or if I picked that up from Neil Adams and talking to him or what. Sorry for the name dropping, Steve Bennett.
Wow!
I love it.
This is good. This is good. This is what we're for.
This is what this show's been missing, Nick. We needed to inject this show with a lethal dose of poison.
A little ruthless aggression.
Oh,
so
that was good.
Sorry. So Bruce Wayne he's found a flower. Yes. You should turn back, man. Get out of here.
Yeah, so he was told that if he wanted to come train, he had to find one of these blue flowers and bring it up there.
Yeah, he actually found the yellow rose of Texas, Todd.
It was blue, and he's in Tibet or somewhere.
Yes. So,
but
the Ra's and Ross thing is interesting. Where do you think the animated series got the Ra's pronunciation from?
If you read
Denny O'Neil.
I was going to say, Denny O'Neil pronounces it that way in interviews to this day.
Oh, I never knew that.
Mm-hmm. I believe technically Ra's is the correct pronunciation.
But he never wrote it as Raj, R-A-J, which would maybe indicate inform a racial identity to the character. And he's kind of been an ambiguously Middle Eastern character up until you read Birth of the Demon. You find out he's from Arabia or whatever.
Yeah, and I mentioned the misdirection earlier. This is such excellent misdirection because I was convinced that Ken Watanabe was Roz from the get-go.
Yep.
And they really got me with this because he's such a good actor in his own right and kind of fits a little bit more the mental image that I would have of him, of Roz as this, as this kind of Middle Eastern
above
Asian,
everything, aloof.
Yes.
Mysterious in a way.
Mysterious, not really interacting with people on the level that Ducard is.
Well, he has maybe 10 lines in the film, maybe.
Yes. Yes. And after trying to understand a lot of his dialogue in Inception, perhaps for the best.
He was great in Inception, but you're right, a little hard to understand.
Right.
So see what they should have done is cast him as Bane and see who was less intelligent, Tom Hardy or Ken Watanabe.
He's not speaking Japanese. He's not speaking Chinese or Mandarin or anything. This is Urdu, which I am not familiar with this language.
Nor am I. And again, we mentioned just how different this is in tone from what we got before. And I think from my standpoint, I was looking for something serious because everybody that's read the comics from pretty much the time Frank Miller did Year One on, Batman comics have been pretty serious from that point on, especially up through 2005. It had been a pretty consistent 20-year run of very gritty, street-level, quote-unquote, dark Batman stories. And we hadn't seen that reflected on the big screen, even though we had seen it a little bit in the Burton movies, but we had seen it certainly in the animated series. But I think what we were all waiting for was something like this to come along and treat the source material with respect and treat it like it was something you could lean into rather than something you had to make fun of.
And, before the Burton films, we had Batman 66. I mean, we had really never seen a truly serious take on the character.
Right.
And
even go ahead.
No, and here we are flashing back to the post Bruce falls down the Batcave, retrieves the arrowhead for Rachel flashback. We're jumping around in time again after Raj asks, "What do you fear?" And here's Michael Caine.
Is this the most that we have seen of Thomas and Martha Wayne in a movie?
Easily.
Yep.
I mean, it's not even close. Yeah, to this point.
And I would say even in the animated series, because I don't remember outside of Perchance to Dream.
Yeah,
kind of a fantasy scenario.
Perchance to Dream is kind of your one. Obviously we've seen different glimpses at him in the comics and things like that, but in terms of adapted media, no, I think this is pretty easily the most extensive look we get at him. And honestly, the most extensive look we get at Thomas. Martha here isn't a major part of this.
She's ancillary.
It's really focusing more on Thomas and Bruce's relationship.
And fathers and sons.
Right.
This theme.
Yep. And you saw just a minute ago the foreshadowing of the pearls, the pearl necklace, if you will, that will become the iconic shot in Batman films. And I guess Burton did his version of it, and Schumacher even did a version of it, I think, in a Forever flashback.
That's a good point. The pearl necklace is the iconic shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Pearls bouncing.
A lot of times it's the money shot.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Sometimes. Depends on the director and what he's going for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Very good point.
And the train goes through the little, yeah. So this is kind of like they've got an L train. This is very much like Chicago.
Which makes sense because a lot of both Begins and Dark Knight were shot in Chicago. So,
which we usually think Gotham, we think East Coast further, Baltimore, New York, but this is a little bit different.
I think I had read somewhere that Nolan intentionally didn't do New York or one of the East Coast locations because he wanted his Gotham to have a different look than the Gothams that had come before. So by using Chicago, you get a little bit of a different feel.
one thing that I love in what we just watched with that sequence with the train is you get this awesome compare and contrast of how Gotham was versus how Gotham is. Mm-hmm. Because you see that train shot, and Gotham looks like this sprawling, clean, modern city. And then when we eventually get to the Gotham of today, you're going to see that it's really nothing like that. It's run down. It's a lot of kind of scummy areas, basically. And you see here, that's there even then. But I love seeing that compare and contrast.
I wasn't really part of the internet comics community back when this movie was released, but I wonder if there were people who were bitching about the fact that they went to the opera to see Die Fledermaus instead of going to the movies to see Sword or Blade of Zorro or whatever.
Mask of Zorro.
Mask of Zorro, yeah.
Right. And, first of the fundamental changes to the origin that Nolan did here. Mask of Zorro had been established, I think, as long ago as, at least for me, year one. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they had previously ever named it. But here we have Joe Chill looking like...
going with my preferred take on it, that he knows who killed his parents. It is 100% Joe Chill. They are not going with the nameless, faceless guy angle on it, which I prefer this.
And
they've changed that over the years.
Right. Yeah, they've changed that several times. I actually grew up with him not knowing the killer, and I prefer that because it's what I grew up with. But I like it either way. I think it works either way.
I remember when it was Joe Kerr who shot him.
Yes.
Who killed him.
Who could he have ended up to be? It's crazy that he ended up being the Riddler.
Here we go. This is where the power lies.
And here we see the introduction of Gary Oldman's mustache as Jim Gordon. So, who are you going to say Joe Chill looked like in that scene, Todd?
Robert Redford gone wrong in the Stars Born, or The Way We Were.
Damn.
Which is a really old man take.
Oh, I love it. So we've gotten, again, that is a change in the origin, and it's one that kind of worked for me because I don't know if you guys remember, I mentioned this is coming on the heels of me coming back into comics and reading Hush. There's a scene in Hush where they go to the opera, and there's a big, I can't remember what issue it was in, maybe the fourth issue, I think, where they go to the opera and Tommy Elliott kind of gets quote-unquote killed. And so it kind of took me to that, and I kind of dug it because it feels like something rich people would do, is just go to the opera randomly. Mm-hmm. And I like the opera, so that was neat. The set design, one of the things that Nick and I talked about when we reviewed the Burton Batman film, how great the Gotham City was. That it was
Anton Furst's design of Gotham as a character in and of itself.
Absolutely. So how do we compare Chris Nolan's look at Gotham to what we got in that film?
More realistic. I mean, he's using practical, real-world sets in almost every regard. Practical's not a good term because Burton had sound stages built that were real. I don't mean to suggest that they weren't. What I'm saying is Nolan is a dude who, as a filmmaker, prefers to, one, shoot his action sequences as practically, with as many practical effects as possible, and two, prefers to shoot on location as much as he possibly can. So, using real locales, using Chicago, I don't remember the actual mansion here that they used to shoot on location, but using these things that are not temporary, that are, permanent existing structures, just helps to further ground the film, which is very important to the tone and story they're trying to set and tell here.
All of the sets for the original quadrilogy are dark, moody, and unrealistic. I don't know if that's the word. I'm trying to think of the Vicky Vale's apartment scene.
Larger than life.
They're so gothically designed to the point of, that nothing like that exists in the real world.
Fantastical.
They're fantastically gothic.
Yep. At this point, when I was watching the movie, again, on my honeymoon in 2005, I was all in. I was standing and applauding because it was already everything I wanted and more than I expected. And
because I was seeing with Alfred and young Bruce was incredible.
That little miniature scene with the coat around young Bruce's shoulders, it still gets me every time to this day. And yes, part of that is applying, knowledge that we have now of how that gets paid off in Dark Knight Rises and stuff. But man, it got me then, and it still emotionally affects me. I mean, I'm someone who's always been a mark for both Jim Gordon and Alfred. I think they're the two most important Batman supporting characters, even more important than Dick Grayson, honestly, to me. And they have, to this point, absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from on that, but I agree with you on this movie in particular, man. The Gordon and Alfred are very important, especially Alfred, but Gordon as well are very important to the Batman mythos. And this, way more than the Burton movies, does an amazing job of getting us the father and son dynamic Todd mentioned earlier with Alfred and Bruce. The way that Alfred steps in as a surrogate for not just the father role, but the mother role as well. Alfred is all Bruce has left. And to see, I think we had never really seen how that plays out when Bruce is a child, to really get an idea of Alfred and this amazing character that he is, that he has so much empathy and so much hurt for the loss of his friends, but so much love for Bruce that he is going to shepherd him and nurture him through all this rage and anger and pain that he's going through. It's really a powerful scene.
And what about the pacing of this film thus far? Sitting here watching it now, we get the impression we are nowhere near the introduction of Batman, per se, into the story. And yet I think the fact that we're, 20, 25 minutes into this, and we're not close to that, and yet it still is holding interest, says something about how intriguing this take on the origin is and how well-paced this movie has been to this point. It's compressed storytelling, but it doesn't feel too decompressed.
And this is one of my favorite little bits in the movie, is you have sacrificed sure footing for a killing stroke. This whole training sequence with, quote, Ducard is outstanding.
I read a funny interview with...
This point has been great.
I read a funny interview with Jonathan Nolan and David Goyer, who wrote the script for this, and they were saying that they were worried they had caused thousands of people to die of hypothermia because they're not actually sure this whole rub your chest, your arms will take care of themselves bit is actually true or not, and they were worried that they had given people faulty advice.
And can I be honest? I'm not going to lie. A few times at parties in the wintertime, I have done that. I've done that deal.
Yep.
So. Todd, your thoughts on the introduction portion of this film? You mentioned you were already bought in 100% at this point to what you had seen.
Yeah, I think Alfred's just a perfect character. He's a saint. We have no flaws to Alfred as a person other than maybe he wants too much for Bruce, or he doesn't see. He has his own ideals of what Bruce should be and does, but he's selfless. He's absolutely, even though he's, getting paid by the way in a sticker, he's portrayed as such a benevolent guardian for Bruce, and everybody adores him. Michael Caine is outstanding. He's the best Alfred there ever was. And I wish I could do a good Alfred or Michael Caine imitation. I cannot. I myself cannot.
We need to draw on that clip from the trip.
Yes,
to get that on here. But no, we haven't even talked about Batman yet. But we've opened the can of worms, and we've got to talk about Michael Caine. You said the best Alfred there's ever been.
Oh yeah,
easily.
Yep.
Without any competition, and that includes the animated series. Mm-hmm. That includes film adaptations. Mm-hmm. That includes the comics for the most part. To me, this is. I mean, since this movie came out, there have been great Alfreds in the comics. But I would argue that up to this point, I had never read a Batman comic that made me care about Alfred in the way that I care about him in this movie.
The original Dark Knight Returns, I do adore that characterization and how dry. And actually, he's the funniest thing in the whole book. And then he dies at the end. How utterly proper! I mean, just it's a well made character. But with that exception, this is the personification of that character and informs him to this day to me.
Absolutely, and every Michael Caine moment, and this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but every Michael Caine moment in this trilogy hits with me. If he's sad, I'm sad. If he's happy, I'm happy. And he is simultaneously providing the laughs throughout the trilogy, because there's a lot of people that bag on this trilogy for, quote, humorless. I would challenge them to watch all of the Bruce and Alfred scenes, and the ones that aren't emotional are extremely funny. Alfred has all of the best one-liners throughout the franchise. He has these great zingers on Bruce to kind of keep him in line a little bit. Kane is just fantastic here, and really anchors the film from a comedic perspective and from a human and emotional perspective versus Bruce's bubbling rage and anger.
Yeah, that's a great point. And here we're also getting the other character who is intended to anchor him in the introduction of an original character, Rachel Dawes, played here by Katie Holmes. This is the one aspect of the film, if you're going to find anything to kind of like nitpick on, I don't know that Rachel is as interesting as she needs to be to get away with some of the character things that she pulls off in this movie. Namely, being a massive bitch to Bruce during this fight sequence.
Yeah, and I don't know. In particular, I think to that scene in the car.
Yes.
When he's wanting to get revenge for his dead parents, and she slaps him in the face and tells him his parents will be ashamed of him. If we had gotten to know Rachel a little bit more, I think that scene wouldn't have sat as poorly with me as it did the first time I watched the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Bale is doing a really good job here. He's portraying different aspects of Bruce. Mm-hmm. This is Bruce before he goes back to on his quest for justice. He's back from boarding school. You imagine it's somebody. I think they had originally wanted to cast Josh Hartnett from Pearl Harbor. Oh my God, it would have been terrible. And Nolan is the guy who. He rewards people who are good in his movies by casting them again. Michael Caine's been in every single Nolan movie since then, I think.
Yeah.
Here we have...
I don't think he was in Dunkirk, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I think he was a voice
that'd be
in
ironic.
Dunkirk. I think he was a voice in Dunkirk, like over the radio.
Perhaps.
If I remember correctly.
Perhaps.
Yeah, now this is a... You mentioned Josh Hartnett. There were so many rumors. That's the other thing about when this movie was in production. I don't know how much was legit, but I remember the rumors. Josh Hartnett was rumored. Jake Gyllenhaal was rumored. There were a few other guys that were rumored in those days. And
Cillian Murphy actually tried out for the role.
I didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm. And
as Bruce Wayne.
Changed the casting. Yeah. Trying to think this. The parents' killer here is all cleaned up, and Bruce is going to shoot him. And this is pretty striking to me. I was not expecting this whatsoever. Mm-hmm. This is again part of the character. You don't even see this in year one. This aspect of Bruce, and somebody beats him to the punch.
And he's almost angry that he didn't get that moment. And I think Bale is doing a phenomenal job of that kind of seething, burning anger that's underneath those eyes right now. He's not expressing it necessarily with words. He's being curt and he's being, rude in conversation, but behind it is this burning anger at the fact that somebody robbed me of my one chance for revenge. So, Bale is a magnificent choice for this movie because I think, and one of the things I think that people are going to hear if they listen to the show over the next few weeks is reappreciation for Christian Bale, because I think I kind of fell victim to a little bit of the hive mind with regards to folks that were maybe excited about the Affleck Batman because he's not doing the over the top Batman voice.
Just the voice. Just the voice, though. I mean, and people still have that perspective, but come on, once you buy in that he's trying to really create a different persona, it works for me. Okay.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that I think that that's kind of become the thing is everybody bags on Christian Bale's Batman because of his voice. But watching these movies, and I watched Rises a few weeks ago, and we'll talk about that in a few weeks. But watching this one again, he is outstanding as Bruce Wayne and as Batman, and that's a hard balance to make there. But in particular, as Bruce Wayne, he really gets to the core of that character in a way that's, like you said, Todd, that is multi-dimensional in a way that we've never seen.
We see him acting out these different phases of Bruce convincingly. I mean, he's convincingly naive and short-tempered here, and he gets his butt kicked in Tibet, and he really pulls off the billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne as well. I mean, it's just one character has so many different faces, and he does them to a point we'd never seen anything like that. Closest we'd seen was Keaton, who was still, how much of that was Keaton, how much of that was Tim Burton, where his idea for it. Although Keaton at the time, we were convinced that was the best we've ever seen. Right. This is so good. And here's Tom Sizemore. No, what was the name of this actor as Falcone?
Tom.
I think of Harry Potter and stuff like
Tom
that.
Wilkinson.
Yeah,
Wilkinson. There it is.
Yep. With one of Nick's favorite lines, like a dog.
That's your favorite line that you bring up all the time.
You did it like 900,000 times in college.
Mm-mm.
Along with your other 4 catchphrases you'd repeat over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's also revealed that the judge isn't on the take.
Yeah, it's almost like here he's, like you said, this naive, just pissed off kid. In Tibet, he's like a wild animal, and by the time he returns to Gotham, he's this almost too self-assured, confident guy, and he can play the two different faces: the avenger of justice that's Batman, or then he can be the kind of billionaire playboy. I think to the restaurant scene that we'll see in a little bit, where he buys the restaurant, which is one of the ultimate Bruce Wayne scenes that we got on screen.
That was awesome, and enjoyed the his dates going swimming as well, and just how quickly he thought about that, creating that diversion, which we may or may not get to today. But he's really seeing how rooted and seated the corruption in Gotham really is at this point, because Falcone owns everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It paints the picture of a city that is so corrupted that it's almost beyond saving.
Mm-hmm.
Which paints the picture of, or informs Ra's al Ghul later, and his point, what he wants to do to Gotham.
And we've talked before on all of our shows about how the best villains are the ones that have a point. And you can look at what Ra's says, and you can think to yourself, you know what, he's got a point. He's too extreme with it, but he makes a point, and it's hard, and you can see why he would genuinely believe what he is trying to do. Because we get these scenes of just how bad Gotham is. Like the judges are corrupt, the police are corrupt, the politicians.
I like this bit with the homeless guy, who we've seen in lots of different things since then. He's one of those guys that gets a lot of work, either as a homeless guy or as a Colombian dictator or something.
And here we are, continuing to play with the nonlinear timeline, which, as we all know, would quickly become a Chris Nolan trademark. Going back and looking at something like Memento, which has it. This has it. Dark Knight Rises kind of has flashback sequences. Of course, Inception, perhaps the most prime example of the nonlinear timeline, but a plot device that really, really works in this film.
Totally. And we see this, I mentioned this is kind of like that feral animal side of Bruce that we see, but we also see an empathy level from this Bruce Wayne, where a lot of times in the comics and in adaptations, we get a Batman who is, there's black and there's white, and that's all there is. Yeah. And here we see him stealing food to survive and then giving that food to a kid who is starving. So we see that empathetic human side of Batman, that he's traveling the world, and in his travels it makes sense that he would see that things aren't as black and white as maybe he would originally think.
And justice, it's just a different way of looking at justice for him. It's justice for this kid to be able to eat and afford to eat. It's still justice. I mean, we define these characters by one word. Superman is hope. Batman is justice. Wonder Woman is love. We've had these oversimplifications, but I think that's the Dan DiDio, Jeff Johns thing. If we have to define characters by one word. I'm loving how they're jumping around with the timeline, and then that big kind of irony to him that seeing that the wealth of the Wayne tech in this third world country where they're coming, and he's not really stealing. He stole from himself.
That's a good point. Yeah, he stole his own. I actually forgot about that. Yeah, he stole his own product basically. Mm-hmm. So he's still not technically violating a moral code.
And here you don't realize it the first time you watch the movie, but they are laying the seeds for how they're going to connect the Scarecrow to Ra's al Ghul in this scene with the effect of the blue flowers and stuff. So a cool little tie-in for later in the film.
Yeah, and we also we're establishing his training, a little bit of how he gets to become as great as he later is as a fighter and as a ninja, quote unquote. But we also see in the course of events here what separates him from the League of Shadows, which is that basically they have a very black and white, right and wrong philosophy. If you violate it, you die. And with him, he's not willing to go to the lengths that they're willing to go to, and he's not willing to see the world through that lens. So you're really getting all of these different elements of Batman: the anger, the grief, the pain, the sense of justice, as Todd put it. And we're getting all of that in this origin story here.
Working a lot more with the psychology of the bats than I would have anticipated. I was thinking, okay, well, he's going to learn this detective technique or this martial art technique that Frank Miller talks about him using in Dark Knight Returns, where he's a master of every single thing there is. He's Wikipedia, an encyclopedia of martial arts. This is more getting to the root of who he is and his motivations than maybe I had expected. I was always thinking about, well, where did he learn this technique or this knowledge? And this is more about, well, why did he decide to dress up like a giant bat?
The common one I always think of, because I had that Untold Tales of the Batman book back when I was a kid that was put out in like the early 80s, I guess. And the one that I always think about with his origin was it was all him in a lab with a Bunsen burner, and that was the extent of like his training to become Batman that they would show. I think it was like a little panel, or like a sequence where there was like him like in a like a karate gi, and then like the next panel was like him pouring chemicals into a Bunsen burner or whatever, and or a beaker or something like that. And so it's like this is definitely the most in-depth I had seen it on the psychological side of, what makes him who he is before he gets back to Gotham. Because obviously Batman Year One is probably the best exploration we've seen of how he refines Batman. But here is how he refines what will become Batman, how he forms Bruce Wayne worldview, which is really cool. And this is the defining moment for him, right? This is that moment where if he goes through and he kills this guy, he's a member of the League and his whole journey changes. But he can't bring himself to do that, and it sets in motion the events that will lead to everything else the rest of the movie. Yep.
And showing that he's learned a lesson from his encounter with Falcone, that pure vengeance and taking lives is not the answer to larger issues. So
that is the way of the Sith.
Mm-hmm. Only a Sith deals in absolutes, which is, of course, itself an absolute.
I really want to get the facial hair that Ken Watanabe is rocking here. That's a good look.
Yeah, I completely agree. So yeah, we get to hear a little Ra's speaking English here, which is something that doesn't really occur very much throughout the film. But here he is giving something of a big speech, trying to convince Bruce to rethink his plans.
So another change from the comics in this movie: no Lazarus pits. What do you guys make of that?
Yeah, no Lazarus pits to this point, but I don't know. It's interesting for sure. It kind of makes sense though, because right now we're having to go with a version of this character that is being played straighter. It's being played more street level and being played more down to earth and realistic. So to introduce the Lazarus Pits this early on in the mythos probably would have taken them right out of the story they were trying to tell.
Yeah, so Todd, do we still have you?
Well, we'll get him back in just a second. Let's carry on forward.
Fair enough. So no Lazarus Pits in this one, and I kind of agree. It keeps the story grounded, and I think that there's still the opportunity, if they wanted to take the franchise in a more fantastical direction, that they leave open the possibility of introducing that later on. But here they're trying to ground it. They're trying to do something markedly different from what had come before, almost a polar opposite of what had come before in many ways. And to me, it's ultimately a good move to stay away from the Lazarus Pit elements here. Although the way things play out, there certainly was a chance to revisit that at a later point. But it's a decision that pays off here. We've talked about Bruce Wayne, Christian Bale. Nick, you haven't really weighed in a whole lot on Christian Bale and his performance. What do you make of his performance throughout this film?
Oh, he's outstanding. I mean, it's so hard to find new and different things for me to praise about the movies, just because I've made no secret over the last, for this movie, 13 years, but for most of the last decade, I've made no secret of the fact that these are among my 3 favorite movies of all time. And part of that, not just for the direction and not just for the tone, for the consistency of the performances. I don't know that we've ever seen a superhero trilogy with as many legitimately great performances throughout it. And Christian Bale is the performance that makes everything go at the center of it. If his Bruce Wayne doesn't work, you're going to run into issues, and the movies would suffer as a result. And
the whole movie doesn't work.
Yeah, he's able to carry the Bruce Wayne side, the Batman side, and that important third side that we talk about sometimes of the just him and Alfred side, and he's able to do all 3 equally well. I think he's still the best Batman we've ever had on screen.
I agree. I agree completely with that. I think that it's him, and then it's everybody else. And that's no knock, because I love Keaton. Thought Affleck did a good job too, but it's him, and his acting in this film really carries this movie, and it has to, because he's the center point. In The Dark Knight, you've got the Joker, who's such a force of nature. You've got Aaron Eckhart's Harvey Dent, who's a huge, major center point character at times in the film. In Rises, he kind of retakes over as the centerpiece, but you've also got Anne Hathaway's Catwoman and this real dynamic take on Bane. But here, he is really the focus from beginning to end. It's not a Ra's al Ghul movie or Ra's al Ghul movie. It's not a Scarecrow movie. It's not a Rachel Dawes movie. It's not an Alfred movie. It's a Bruce Wayne movie, a Batman movie. And if Bale's performance had slipped even just a little bit, it would have caved the entire movie. And here, Nick, I'm going to let you talk about this scene, because you and I have talked about this before. One of the most important, maybe the most important scene, I could argue, in this trilogy is this scene on the plane, because this will come back in a big, big way in Dark Knight Rises and sets the theme and the overarching story of these Batman movies perhaps better than anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a phenomenal scene that is carried by 2 of arguably the best performances in all of superhero movies to this point. Those that, of course, being Michael Caine and Christian Bale. But you're right. This kind of sets up the story that the entire trilogy is going to tell. That of Batman as a symbol for something, a symbol for inspiration in hopes of spurring Gotham to become something greater than it is right now. And the hope is always there from the beginning that hopefully he can complete his mission and no longer have to carry that burden. That is inherent here in this scene. And I think so many people who bitch about the idea of a Bruce Wayne who quits being Batman in The Dark Knight Rises forget this scene, and that they had been setting it up from the get-go. But this is not a Dark Knight Rises podcast yet.
Right. This scene sets... You can borrow the rose if you like. Just bring it back with a full tank. great line here on the airplane. It sets the theme of these Nolan movies, which is that Batman is always designed, at least Bruce Wayne's version of Batman, is always designed to have a finite end. This is not a never-ending quest. This is a quest that has an ending and a point in mind where Batman is a symbol to inspire others. And that's what it's ultimately about, is creating a symbol. It's not this idea that he's going to be Batman until he's 86 years old and gets killed by some random thug.
And here we're also getting the first look at Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow, the character who will become the Scarecrow.
Jonathan Crane.
Who I was blanking on the name for some reason. So, Todd, what was your impression?
Know. I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was expecting Howard Stern as the Scarecrow. We heard that stupid rumor for so many years in pages of books like Wizard.
Was that a real rumor? I don't remember that.
It was, but that's because
you
were taught to expect anything with how ridiculous those movies were getting.
You say that was in the pages of Wizard. Ben Morse must answer for this.
Yeah,
he was a Wizard employee at the time.
Ben Morse must answer for much.
Indeed.
Yeah, so that's our first glimpse at him, and I think they cast well because, I mean, let's face it, the dude's kind of a creepy little bastard, to quote Stone Cold.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be careful with that character because I never have viewed him as physically opposing, and so you don't want to get somebody who's traditional, like Hollywood buff for it, and I think Cillian Murphy fits perfectly the version of the Scarecrow they needed to portray here.
Yeah, I was expecting maybe somebody a little bit more cerebral or bookish, but he was weird enough in his portrayal, and his eyes are just so unique that you know that there's something up with the character from the moment you see him in the courtroom.
He's the kind of guy the kind of character that you wouldn't want to be alone in a room with. And I think that's a good thing for the Scarecrow, because even before he becomes, quote unquote, the Scarecrow, you kind of get why he would be the kind of guy that would be obsessed with fear, that would be obsessed with, studying the effects of fear on others.
He would definitely have his own podcast.
Oh, certainly. And we might even let him have a podcast right here at Place to Be Nation Pop, the only place to be in your pop culture world. What that podcast would be about, I don't know exactly, but just an unsettling individual. Phobias, yes. Just an unsettling individual.
What's your phobia?
Howard Stern's hair.
He would probably be a member of the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, I would think.
I'm afraid of lots of things. I'm afraid of soundtracks, for one.
Let's see. The Bat Cave. Here we see the arrival into the Bat Cave as Bruce is rediscovering it, really, for the first time since his youth.
And overcoming his fear here, like realizing that he's going to have to put the childish part of himself away as best he can if he's going to embark on this mission.
He's realizing that he has to become someone else. He has to become something else. You might say.
It's like you could draw an arrow from this adaptation to what the CW decided to do with the Oliver Queen character.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It has season 1 of Arrow has a very Batman Begins feel about it. But this scene here where they're making vague reference to somebody coming to Gotham, was I the only one who on first viewing just assumed it was the Joker, even though they hadn't said anything about him being cast? I was like, because I wasn't even considering Ra's as a possibility at this point.
No, I wasn't thinking the Joker because I had read enough about the production of the film to know that the Joker wasn't expected to be a part of this yet, that they wanted to build to the Joker. So I wasn't expecting that. Yeah,
they were either going to the end game real quick or the movie will be done in 15 minutes. I think Joker, they really do a nice job of later with the film in saying that, okay, this is kind of a what happens after you introduce a Batman. This is how the city responds.
And there's actually a line from Jim Gordon directly to along those
escalation,
lines. Escalation. Yeah, you have a, you pull a knife, they pull a gun. You pull a gun, they have a, they get a tank or whatever. No. You dress up like a bat, they do this, So, yeah, it's really, and here we get the just slimy Rutger Hauer character.
Mr. Earl.
Mr. Earl, which Nick and I quote a lot on this show. Actually, we quote back the Lucius Fox owning him later on in the film by turning his words against him. Which we'll get to Lucius in a moment.
Which we actually quote Bruce turning his words back against him more than we do Lucius.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Bruce is the one who drops it, hits him with the. It's all a bit technical, but the important thing is that our company's future is secure.
It is secure. Yeah. Christian Bale kind of has a CM Punk look to him.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, and he did that movie, The Machinist, where he was emaciated and scrawny, and you wouldn't believe that he could beat up anybody, much like CM Punk.
And that was the Jay Hinchy moment, brought to you by Todd Weber.
Hey, you know what? He's not that bad. Oh, Lord. Mr. Earl is just this delightful... And I remember making this point when Iron Man came out in 2008. I drew a lot of comparisons between Mr. Earl and Obadiah Stane as the kind of... Because they play basically the same role, don't they? Of the person that has kind of taken over the company in the namesake's stead.
Well, not just that, but you have to remember, unlike Obadiah Stane, unlike Mr. Earl, is supposed to have also a deep personal relationship with Tony and have been there, after his father's death and stuff and been close with him, whereas Earl and Bruce here don't really have much interaction with each other until Bruce returns to Gotham, and it's never even hinted at being a particularly close relationship.
Introduction to Lucius Fox time. Mm-hmm. Morgan Freeman, the other missing piece to the equation here. We've talked about Michael Caine. We've talked about Christian Bale and Gary Oldman and Gary Oldman's stash, importantly, as Commissioner Gordon. Here's the missing piece, because Morgan Freeman, to me, completes this ensemble in such an important way. We see with Lucius Fox is another character who we've seen in different adaptations. Was he an original creation for the animated series?
No, he was in the comics. I think back in the mid '80s. They did a brief thing where he turned that he was a secret supervillain, and they've walked that back a couple times because it doesn't make sense. You've seen this film, you can't reconcile that. But no, he's been kind of like a technical advisor, a Wayne kind of a overseer of the company, because nobody can really believe that Bruce Wayne's going to do day-to-day operations of that. So he's been kind of the Mr. Earl in the comics before, at least in the 80s.
Yeah, and I would say that until this movie, the portrayals of Lucius Fox I had seen most on the animated series and in some of the 90s comics, he was almost portrayed as this kind of younger and more aloof kind of figure, right? Like he wasn't someone, at least when I was reading or watching the show, that knew Bruce's identity, or that was a more he didn't really have an active role usually in the goings on of the plot. He was a kind of an ancillary player. Here, Morgan Freeman's Lucius Fox is very smart and very clever and is not putting up with any of Bruce's bullshit, from the get-go. He's pretty much like, no, you think I'm going to believe that you're going spelunking or whatever? He plays such an active role in the things that are going on as kind of this guy that, this is a Bruce Wayne that maybe doesn't know his way around a Bunsen burner quite as well. So he needs somebody with some know-how in his life, the way that Lucius has.
I like that this cave is really a cave and not obviously a soundstage or a couple, you get to see the foundation built under the mansion itself. And again, more of an origin of his base of operations. And, even if this movie stood alone, it could work as an origin story, if you think, for the Burton Batman, if you want to think about it that way.
Sure.
It's Batman, filling in all the blanks that we didn't have before.
And Bruce is, as you just saw a moment ago, was in another great bit of foreshadowing, was wearing a proto-Bane mask.
Indeed he was. And this is all this little stuff, which I know a lot of people may find tedious or boring. It's so cool to me. Like, how does he build this thing? How does it come about? Like, where does he get this mask? Does he have backups? Like, all these little minute details are being addressed here, and I think it's so cool to see that play out. And we still haven't gotten to his big suit-up moment. We're, what, an hour into the movie at this point?
Mm-hmm. Now we're still establishing just how corrupt the Gotham PD is, as we see Gordon, kind of the one, or at least the one that we see who is actually standing up to this corruption. And then we see Arnold Flass, which is a very different version of Arnold Flass than what we see in Year One.
Yeah, he's kind of a jock in
yes.
the Batman Year One, like the guy that got seasoned in his report card, so he became a cop, and then he was on the take, so he was able to escalate in Commissioner Loeb's corrupt police force. But here he's almost like Harvey Bullock.
I was about to say, he's more like a combination of Bullock and Flass than he is Flass.
When I first saw him at the theater, I remember turning to whoever I was watching it with. I can't remember who was sitting. I remember our group that went to see it, but I can't remember who was sitting next to me. And I said, "Hey, it's Bullock." Of course, it wasn't Bullock, but when I first saw him, I thought that's who it was supposed to be, you know? And it really is a combination of the look and as of Bullock with the character makeup of Flass from Batman Year One.
Now, at your initial screening, Greg, were there any yips?
Go for it.
There was one or two. There was one or two yips.
I can't compete with that. I always think of the Bullock guy. He ended up being on Sons of Anarchy.
He did.
Back when I watched the first couple seasons of that show.
I mean,
he's another guy that this was the first time I'd seen anything, and he ended up being in several TV shows that I would see later on. I think he popped up in something that I watched a couple seasons ago, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Hell, it may have been one of the CW shows. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. Maybe The Walking Dead. I don't know, but he gets around is what I'm getting to.
This is great, getting to see the simplified version of the costume that we see in Year One, you know, Nolan's little take on it. So at this point, the movie is just fully, you know, I am sucked in and hooked all over again every time I watch it.
And I love any time they show us the struggles of early Batman, where nothing comes easy to him. He's trying to jump across rooftops and he's getting hurt. We see this in Batman Year One. We see it in Jeff Johns' Batman Earth One to great effect, where, you know, he's trying to run across the rooftop and he can't make the jump, and he falls to almost his doom, and gets really busted up. So I always enjoy seeing that. You know, I think we're so conditioned to quote unquote Bat God, where everything comes easy to him, that it's always fun to see these early stories where, you know, he's not perfect, he's not flawless, he's going to make mistakes, and when he does, there are real consequences for those mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about Lucius Fox. We haven't really talked as much about Gordon. How integral is Gary Oldman's performance here? I know that you're particularly fond of him, Nick, but Todd, what were your thoughts on the character of Commissioner Gordon before this movie, and who had been almost a non-factor in any Batman movie, and versus maybe what Oldman brought to the table here?
Yeah, it's refreshing that both that Nolan got him right, and that Commissioner Gordon is this person who's Bruce's peer, or at least Batman's peer, who is not just this old man figurehead for the police who just kind of points his finger and says things. He's he's an accomplished cop, and he's an
accomplished what now?
Yes.
He's an accomplished cock too. I understand.
Yeah,
he's
that's Liam Neeson. We're talking about Ra's al Ghul there. We're going back to Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon, and we had never seen that character portrayed as such in the films. Although, you know, going back, Frank Miller loved Commissioner Gordon and and wrote him in such a way that you believe that he is the one good cop in the whole city. And,
he's almost the main character of Batman Year One in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. He's just as essential. Yeah, he's just as essential, if not more so, to that story than Batman is. And, you know, it's interesting in that because, you know, reading that story for the first time, I didn't necessarily realize that, but the animated adaptation put that over the top for me, just in terms of when you actually see them walk around and the pacing of that and how much time we spend with Gordon versus Bruce. It really gets across the fact that, yeah, he almost is, as you said, Greg, the main character of year one.
And he's one of the best dads there are in comics.
Yes, I would agree.
Absolutely. And if you want to hear about some of the other great dads in comics, I would recommend all of you go out and listen to the Hard-Traveling Fanboys Best Dad Countdown, featuring Ben Morse. It can be found in the archives at Place to Be Nation Pop, on Podbean and iTunes, or on PlaceToBeNation.com.
Yes, that's Ben Morse, the gentleman scholar of Place to Be Nation Comics.
Not to be confused with the gentleman caller, Greg Phillips.
I have lost my feed, so I don't know exactly where you are, but I just saw a batarang hit the ground.
We're not quite there yet, I don't think. But
Is it the car? Chicks dig the car.
Chicks do dig the car. Never leave the cave. It's actually at the Bat MasterCard scene. Mm-hmm. Never leave the cave without it.
No, it's actually Poison Ivy dancing in a gorilla suit.
Poison Ivy, who was Uma Thurman, was once married to Gary Oldman, Commissioner Gordon.
Huh.
What? I didn't know that.
Day. Yeah, way back in the Dangerous Liaisons day. So you go, Gary Oldman.
Good for Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, yeah. Gary Oldman, who really hasn't looked like an old ever.
No.
He's always looked more like a Gary Youngman. And Henny Youngman was always old.
I don't know. He looked pretty old as Mason Verger, Greg.
I guess.
But how did he sound?
Look badly beaten and You're involved is what you are.
Sufa.
Why is it you can look at my face, but you shy away when I mention the name of God? One of the great characters.
Do the candy bar line.
I don't remember the candy bar line now.
Damn it.
I was wearing my finest come hither outfit. Oh, boy. So this is... Okay, you mentioned earlier that if there's...
I wonder what would happen, Greg, if Katharine Hepburn, Mason Verger, met Clarice J. Arling.
Oh, my God. I mean, I don't even know. I have a feeling that there would be a lot of... and a lot of going on. But other than that, who's to say? What would happen if Larry King joined in? My God.
Oh, God. If Larry King is Cordell?
I haven't seen that film in a long time.
Call up. Oh, Lord. I think if there's one other element of criticism that you can make about Batman Begins, and not so much in this necessarily, because this is kind of cool.
This scene is fucking awesome.
Surprising everybody.
The entire idea of this scene is something I never thought we would see in a Batman film before we did, and I freaking love it. It is so incredible to see him actually playing on these people's fears and silently picking them off one by one.
Yep.
It would set the template, for what you wanted those sequences in Arkham Asylum to play like a few years later on the video game consoles. And I remember, like I said, the first trailer I saw for the movie is based around this scene, and I remember just being instantly hooked by the entire presentation and approach they were taking with this.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, Wayne Tech, right? These boxes are all Wayne Tech.
It's all Wayne Tech, and you get the idea of how big this company is, and also that maybe they're involved in some less than above board activities that Bruce is going to have to clean up. So this is a great scene from that standpoint. Now here is one part that I didn't love, which is the group brawl scene, because I was going to say this is the one element I think that if there is a criticism, it's that Nolan was the best at directing fight scenes at this point in his career. These are, they're okay, but they're not they're kind of doing that thing where it's a lot of camera movement and a lot of cuts to kind of keep you from seeing what's going on, which works when he's coming out of the shadows, but works a lot less when he's being surrounded by 8 thugs and trying to fight them off. I wanted to see some of this martial arts technique he's picked up, or at least some of the brutality. And there's the classic "I'm Batman" line. that everybody has to, at least once. But yeah, I think that's something that Nolan took a couple movies really to get the hang of, is really how to get a dynamic fight scene. And by the time of Inception and then Dark Knight Rises, he had really figured that out.
Absolutely.
Such a great scene, and then him closing in on Falcone here.
Yes.
Which I had always said Falcone, but...
Right. You know, it's interesting because I'd never pronounced it Falcone either, ever. I'd always been Falcone when I had read it. But after this movie, I could never hear it the old way again. And so when Gotham called him Falcone, it bugged me in a way that it probably shouldn't have. Although, hashtag Gotham sucks.
And there's another cool, like, him popping out of nowhere and taking a guy down. Like,
completely no-selling the taser.
Yeah, if they were going to hold off on Batman, that scene, they did it well because you get everything you want and everything you don't.
Yes, that's true. You do. The only thing is they could have revealed, you know, maybe what was behind that codpiece, the bat codpiece.
The bat cod.
Oh, now you're thinking, Sha. The Lamborghini, then. Oh, such a great scene. But there's so much to love about this movie. You know, Nick and I have talked about maybe you can nitpick Rachel a little bit. Maybe you can nitpick some of the fight scenes a little bit. Anything you would nitpick about this movie, Todd?
Rachel. Specifically, although I don't know that they're a whole lot better with the Picasso painting they cast in the second film as Rachel dies.
Good Lord.
This is why when the manager comes on, it makes headlines. Because Todd Weber, he doesn't go in soft. He goes in hard and drops bombs. I'm of an age, I don't give a crap. The repercussions. Are we going to get sued for these? The opinions expressed by Todd Weber, not necessarily the opinions of Place to Be Nation Pop or any other feeds. What was that, Greg? I said, although they may be the opinions of the staff of Place to Be Nation. This is great. The Picasso like what was her name? Maggie
Gyllenhaal.
Gyllenhaal, thank you.
Yeah, how is he prettier than she is?
Who is that? Okay. This one I don't, and I've been missing the dialogue a little bit here. But who was that guy that Gordon was talking to? Was that the existing police chief? And what was his name in the movie?
Commissioner Loeb.
Loeb. Okay,
right.
Awesome.
Thank
you. So it is.
Yeah, in year one, he's kind of like the here he is too, but he's nowhere near as corrupt. On screen here as he is in the comics.
Yeah. Isn't his gimmick in year one that he repeats himself over and over again? Like he'll say something like, "Now that's not something that's going to happen in Gotham. No, it isn't.
Gonna go get the papers. Get the papers."
Yeah, exactly.
What'd you have to be Batman for? What'd you have to be Batman for?
Master, why not you have some biscuits and mustard?
I think we're definitely going to have Carl Childers in Comic Book Theater 3.
I aim to kill you with it. Yeah, gotta happen.
The
fall down push up.
That boy that way.
I like the way you talk, Alfred. I like the way you talk too, Mr. Wayne. Master Wayne, sorry. I tried to do this fall down push up that Bruce is doing right here one time in college.
I can see it in my head, and it's highly entertaining.
I'm still on the. I'm
saying there were.
I'm stuck on the back signal, the Falcone back signal, which is to me, it gets better every time I see it.
It's so great.
So good to talk about that. I'm glad you brought that up. Tom.
It is giving these plausible, real-world explanations for literally everything in the mythos. It is incredible, the job they're doing thus far.
I wonder what that protein shake Alfred made for him there.
That's a good question. I don't know. How come this guy here, this lawyer here, looks like he's out of like Wall Street in the 80s? Glasses, hair, everything. But yes, every Alfred line in this movie is money, even down to what's the point of all those bloody push-ups if you can't even lift a bloody load? Just tremendous, all across the board. We haven't really talked much about Liam Neeson as the real, spoiler alert, the real Ra's al Ghul.
Good.
Y'all's thoughts on that?
Lord. Good for Bruce Wayne. That's my thoughts.
Same.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, actually. One of my favorite Batman scenes, maybe one of my favorite Bruce Wayne scenes of all time in any medium.
Especially if you're going with that billionaire playboy, like public persona aspect. This is a perfect encapsulation of that.
I got a gripe, just a slight one.
Okay.
I'm coming at. I think the microwave thing's a little awkward, a little not well explained. I think the more you see it, the better you get it. Mm-hmm. And when you're watching it the first time, it's kind of a little cloudy. Mm-hmm. the whole supervillain mechanism here. Yes. Good Lord, Bruce Wayne, good for you, man.
Yeah, but a little cloudy, but not so much skip or zip.
I'm more of a fan of the ballet compared to the opera myself.
So, yeah, I agree. This scene is just quintessential Bruce Wayne. The creating that dichotomy that we got in the classic animated series, where Bruce even had a different voice and way of speaking than did Batman. So I think that's a cool thing they establish here, even if it costs Bruce and the girl that he really wants to be with situation. So, what do we make of Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul? Thoughts on that?
Outstanding. A twist they didn't see coming. He has a presence about him. He's able to execute that twist because he's able to be convincingly an active Bruce, and then when he turns, he's able to play the other side of that coin equally as convincingly. He has a physical presence as well, because even though up to this point he was mainly known for dramatic films outside of episode 1 or whatever, he does have a large physical presence, and he holds his own in action scenes. So I loved everything about.
He was a boxer.
Yeah, and I loved
in real life. So
I loved everything about his portrayal. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, I agree, and you don't see it coming necessarily. It is a twist they very much better job of pulling off than say Khan in Star Trek. Star Trek 2. I'm sorry, Star Trek Into Darkness. There it is.
Into Darkness. Yeah.
Yeah, where everybody knew what was going on with the twist. And here, the merchandise didn't reveal that he was Ra's al Ghul, but it's more convincing because you see more of his character in the first half, and has more of a connection to Bruce in general. I think that the purification of Gotham, I think they could have developed that just a little bit more, but the end happens pretty quickly too, with Raj and the train scene.
Yeah, and I agree. The microwave element is the one thing that you could say, okay, a little bit. I mean, to a degree, obviously you have to suspend your disbelief for a guy dressing up like a bat. But I think that's the one thing that kind of pushes it maybe into the territory of the more tactical Batman movies, and maybe could have been explained a little bit better. But overall, I think they mostly pull it off. And one thing we have to talk about is there is a little bit of controversy about this movie. And it comes in the very last scene for Ra's al Ghul, when he's on train and it's speeding along to its end, and Batman has a chance to save Ra's, and he tells him, "I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you." And then he leaves the train and watches as Ra's plunges to his doom. Now, a lot of people have criticized that scene. I don't know if it's a lot, but several people I've talked to have criticized that particular scene as saying that Batman basically murders Ra's by allowing him to die, and that the scene as written doesn't make sense. What do you guys make of that scene in particular? I have never had a problem with it, actually. I've always kind of, I guess I just can look away because it makes sense to me that in that situation, Bruce, at the beginning of his career, would make that decision. What do you guys make of that? Did it strike you funny when it happened? Do you think it holds up? What are your thoughts on that particular scene?
It's never really bugged me. It still doesn't bug me. I look at it, and this is not a great comparison because it's a comparison to a much more controversial scene, but I kind of look at it the same way I look at the Zod scene in Man of Steel.
Beat me to it, my brother.
It is a character who is very early on in his career, his heroic career, who is still figuring out what it means to be that person and what it means to live up to that code and how stringent that code is. And to Batman's credit, in the subsequent films, we never see him cross that line or even approach that line again.
Yeah, you beat me to it on the point about General Zod and Superman making that choice in Man of Steel. I wrestle with it because, he could have easily saved him. In my opinion,
definitely.
He could have made that choice and saved him. But maybe he thought, if I let you go, you're going to get resurrected by the Lazarus Pit, which is not in this film. It should be, because that's an aspect of Ra's al Ghul we've always seen before, but we don't hear in this trilogy. Although, I used to think, they're going to bring him back for Rises, because that would be awesome to tie the whole thing together. But they didn't. Anyway,
how great is this scene? Sorry, not to derail this, but this was. I remember wanting to leap out of my seat when I was watching this in the theater.
I think we're a little bit ahead of you, Todd, referring to the scene when Batman grabs Flash out of nowhere and suspends him by the building and does the swear to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was still with Batman talking to Gordon on the back porch, so I'm only a couple seconds behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're about to get a cameo here, I think, Nick.
Yep. The kid who plays the godforsaken Joffrey in Game of Thrones pops up right there. Kind of a retroactive cameo, because we didn't know it was a cameo at the time.
Right.
And isn't there a theory that the character of this kid ends up becoming John Blake later on?
I have heard that, but never bought into it.
I don't either. Just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Well, and they play around with time in this trilogy. You would expect, Dark Knight Returns is going to be not Dark Knight Returns, there again. The Dark Knight would take place almost immediately after, but they jump quite a bit, don't they?
I think it's
so.
2 years. Yeah.
Well, in real time it was 3 years, but in the movies it was 3 years. But I don't know, because he's 30 here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they show the
and we
birthday.
think that in Rises, he's probably pushing it late 40s, maybe mid to late 40s.
Well,
earlier.
I would say early 40s probably, because there's 8 years they reference between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, and I think it's
that's the one with more of a time jump.
Yeah, 2 to 3 between Begins and Dark Knight. So by the time of Rises, he's probably 40 to 44, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, and so the kid would probably be in his.
There's the kid again.
At oldest, very early 20s, right? At the oldest. So.
And there's Joffrey.
There he is. So Todd, I want you to finish your point. You were talking about the scene, the death scene of Ra's, and how you feel about it. You said you've wrestled with it.
Yeah, I have. I mean, because I've been very critical of the Man of Steel choice that they made there, and here I have kind of let Batman off the hook. Although he could have let Joker die, and how many lives would he have saved letting Joker die? Hypothetically, if we're talking the history of the character. Here, I wrestle with. I think, again, early in his career, he's got a responsibility to the city. So far, he didn't even know that Ra's al Ghul would survive that earlier fire and everything. So, yeah, I think maybe on that choice, it's more of I'm doing this for Gotham. But it's kind of a weird dialogue choice. Then I'm not going to.
Right. I think if there's one thing, I actually don't have a problem with him letting Ra's die there. Again, it's the beginning of his career. He's not sure how to handle it. This is a guy that knows the one guy that knows his identity that he can't trust. But the one thing that does give me a little bit of pause is that line of dialogue where he said, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. I think that one bit of dialogue, I think if there's one thing about this movie that I would take away, it would be that line of dialogue. He would just leave the train and not say anything.
So, does this movie feel long sometimes? I mean, do you think Do you think? I mean, it's 2 hours 20 minutes, and they wait about almost an hour to get Batman himself in there, and then we get a whole bunch of that linear plot going on with the whole takedown reemergence of Batman. But the end sequence, I think, happens and stretches it out quite a bit.
You're talking about where they kind of take over the Narrows.
Yes. Yeah, and here's I'm on the Scarecrow just burned Batman scene, and we have early Batman failing again.
Mm-hmm. We're seeing him laying on the rooftop calling for Alfred at this point. But to answer your question, I've never felt that way. This is a movie that always hooks me every time, and I never feel its length because I think it is just fascinatingly engaging from beginning to end. And it's probably because I owned it the entirety of my college career instead of Dark Knight, which came out midway through. This is probably the single movie I have seen more than any other movie in history, and yet it never ever gets to me.
And I can attest in my time of knowing him that Nick's always been fascinated by the length.
I am the anti-David Sunday in that regard. Length is what I want from a film.
David prefers girth.
Yes.
I like that he's flashing back to his childhood fears at this point when he's on the roof. You know, that cut to young Master Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
The failing there on the roof, the dealing with his fears, as you mentioned, Todd, and then, of course, waking up with Alfred, and Alfred bringing Lucius into the fold, which is a key moment here. And you can see Bruce is very uneasy about Alfred kind of letting Lucius, help him in this situation. So it creates this great little dynamic where Bruce never comes out and just flat out tells Lucius on screen that he's Batman, but he by the second movie especially, they've got this little rapport between each other where Bruce comes out with more outlandish scenarios for why he needs this high-tech military equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, you brought this up, Todd, and I think we had lost you for a bit when we were talking about it, Nick and I. Your thoughts on, you mentioned this a minute ago, the lack of Lazarus Pit. Nick said, and Nick and me kind of had the same take on it, which is that for us, it's okay not having the Lazarus Pit because this is kind of a more grounded in reality, quote unquote, take on the mythos. I made the argument that they were still an opening for them to use it after this movie if they wanted to.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Lazarus Pit thing?
Yeah, I think they could have done that, and it didn't have to necessarily introduce it here, although it might be somewhat cheap had they just showed up with it in the third movie. It would have been more of an Easter egg for long-time hardcore Batman fans. So the whole trilogy is as realistic as Batman can be. So to have it would be kind of weird to have the one thing, although climbing up the pit is a bit much in the third movie. Emerging from the where is it? I forget the name of the pit that he climbs out of.
I'm not sure
that part is still stretching.
Which is, I guess,
in Rises,
a visual allusion to the Lazarus Pit, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so too, because it's a metaphor for getting out. Although it was Talia who got out of it. That to me is the best twist, and we're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
The reveal of Talia.
All of our guests are only doing one movie at a time, so if you have something you want to say about the rest of the trilogy, get it out now.
When Rachel realizes that Bruce is Batman, or at least is just putting this whole thing on a facade, is a good moment. I was talking just a second ago about the reveal of Talia echoes the reveal of Raj in this movie at the end. So, and you get
a great point that I don't think I've ever actually considered.
I've never thought about that before too. I just had that epiphany. I like the piano, how he gets to the Batcave by using the piano keys. Little homage to the Batman '66. Mm-hmm. It's not the bust of Shakespeare, but
there's no red bat phone.
No, there's no Ethel.
No. And Harriet, thank you very much.
And Harriet, that's it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Nick and I,
what do you think about?
Got a refresher on that recently. So
we were somewhat critical about the cowl, how he couldn't quite turn his head quite naturally just yet. in the design of the character, but it was already light years better than the Schumacher and Burton.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it becomes a plot point in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's true.
Where
he actually
fuck
Mr. Earl. Sorry.
He tells us, I need I need a new suit. I need to be more dynamic, more aerodynamic, more mobility. And then Lucius goes, "You want to be able to turn your head?" And it's like, yeah, I do actually.
He'd been on Reddit, I think.
Was Reddit even a thing back then?
I don't know.
We had a special section of GeoCities.
Yes, and the comics forums. Remember that?
AOL. Yeah,
yeah,
I do. Yeah, I was in the Titans forum quite a bit back in the day. That's a throwback. Holy cow!
Yeah. I used to roam around the Bat forum and the I don't even think they had a Green Lantern dedicated forum, if I remember correctly. They might have, but I feel like that was like in general or others or something like that. And so I would spend a lot of time in the Batman forum where people would complain about whatever we were complaining about at the time. Nonetheless, kind of wrapping things up. Obviously, I think we're all big fans of this one. Nick and I have waxed philosophical about this before, and so Todd, just kind of your overall thoughts on this movie, what it meant to the Batman franchise.
Yeah, I've said this in the chat. This is a miraculous film how it reestablished Batman in the public's eye, in the pop's eye, to turn around a character that had been turned into a joke in all those Schumacher films specifically. The Burton films are what they are. People know what they're getting with the Tim Burton film, but the Schumacher things treated him as just an absolute caricature. And Batman, it wasn't even about Batman. It was about the spectacle back then. This is a true character study. You are reintroduced to his mission, to his justice. The rogues are taken seriously, but it's done by a top-notch director, A-list actors, beautiful cinematography. The movie looks fantastic in high def. It's timeless. You wouldn't believe this is a 13-year-old film. This could have come out last year. I think, although The Dark Knight is probably the singular best quote-unquote genre superhero film, this isn't that far beyond it, and we wouldn't have been able to have The Dark Knight succeed with the further development of the Batman character and the relationships between Batman and Alfred, Batman and Lucius, Batman and Gordon that are paid off a little bit further in Dark Knight. So, yeah, without this, you wouldn't get Dark Knight. This is still, like I said, miraculous. It's a tremendous 180 for the character. One of the rare true film successes from Warner Brothers DC, at least artistically.
Absolutely. Yeah, continuing to this day. And I think that was Wally Pfister the cinematographer on this one? As he was on other Nolan films?
I believe so, but I can't confirm that outright.
With Cillian Murphy, where's the Batman? Just going full on nuts.
Yep.
I love.
Yes, Wally Pfister.
Character work.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and to the miraculous element of this movie, it not only redefined Batman, it also redefined the superhero origin movie. Mm-hmm. Because think about how many times we have seen other takes on Batman Begins since then. There was Iron Man, which drew heavily on Batman Begins. There was Doctor Strange, we talked about on our podcast. If you look at the broad strokes, it's almost note for note Batman Begins. Mm-hmm. Arrow, Season 1, Batman Begins.
Even beyond that, it kind of introduces the concept of the reboot into Hollywood in general, because it hadn't really been done to this point. Like, just wholesale ignoring something that was only 7 years beforehand. This is something new for genre filmmaking in general.
And Man of Steel jumps around with the timeline like this does as well, although there's that extended Krypton sequence. Or, I'm sorry, Krypton sequence.
Thank you.
But apart from that, you do a lot of that same thing where he's on this part of the journey and then he remembers this before. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we've seen this film a lot, but we didn't see it before this.
Exactly. And so that kind of sets up the question that I want to leave you guys with. I don't think we want to necessarily talk about where this ranks in the pantheon of Batman movies, because I believe that all of us are going to be on the same page with regard to it's maybe not The Dark Knight, but just right up there near it. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about where this ranks in the pantheon of superhero origin movies, because we've seen a lot of good ones over the years. We've seen the first Spider-Man movie. We've seen Spider-Man Homecoming. We've seen, which I don't know if you count that as an origin movie necessarily, but we've seen Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy. We've seen a lot of great superhero. Superman, the motion picture, Richard Donner. What does it for you in your pantheon of superhero origin movies? Nick, I know your answer, but go ahead.
It is not only the greatest superhero origin movie of all time, it is so, in my opinion, the third greatest superhero movie in general of all time.
Yeah, Todd, what about you? Where does this rank among origin stories for you?
Well, I think the Dick Donner Superman had a bigger impact because it came out after nothing. It wasn't trying to fix a broken character. So I think that one and this one are neck and neck, each influential in their own ways. This repaired and set the groundwork for the future, the 20 more or 15 more years of good Batman, at least in people's opinions. But the Superman, you'd never seen anything like that. And although that was told in a very linear fashion, it was a different kind of a movie, but it was such a popular phenomenon at the time. Right. It was everywhere. And I don't know that this necessarily had that impact at the time. I think you combine this with The Dark Knight, and, it's the strongest trilogy there's been by far. But also I'll say number 2 on origin films. I cannot rank it with the best comic films. I just don't know what my ranking would be at this point. It is my second favorite of the Batman trilogy, the Nolan Batman trilogy.
Interesting.
So I am not as big of a proponent of Rises as everyone is, although it's still excellent. This is second in the trilogy, that particular trilogy.
Very good. And so the good points all around here. For me, this would be I would say easily number 1 origin movies. Actually, because all your points made about the original Superman film hold up. Me, I enjoy this one more, so it gets number 1 spot. But I agree the impact of Superman was more. But this would be number 1, and that would be number 2. It's everything else. But I think everything that followed it in terms of how you tell a superhero origin in a non-boring, unpredictable fashion, because there's a lot of stuff along the way. You may think you know the basic broad strokes of the story, but they do enough twists along the way and little changes here and there to surprise you as a viewer. You don't know every single beat that's going to happen before it happens, and that's hard to do in a superhero origin story. So all of us seemingly enjoyed this one. So Todd, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. You're on a different coast than us, so I know it's a little bit harder to coordinate, but glad you were able to block out some time for us to revisit this movie.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I was just working out the math of, that must mean Winter Soldier is Nick's second favorite comic movie, or the second best comic movie of all time, which is pretty good. I mean, I don't know that I will hold this up as high as some of the other Marvel films.
That's actually incorrect.
No, I'm wrong.
That's actually incorrect.
Okay, all right. So
Rise.
So we'll wait.
Second favorite.
We're gonna have to hear more on the.
I am a shameless mark for everything Chris Nolan does. So you marry Chris Nolan with my favorite comic character, and I will verbally fillet these movies until the end of time.
So Winter Soldier, not as high as I thought. Okay. So, I mean, no criticism. Here we have a couple corrupt. I'm still in my recap mode. We have real Batmobile action now, which is great. We didn't talk a whole lot about that, did we?
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, the Tumblr. I introduced that thread early and then kind of abandoned it. So everything that I thought I was going to hate about the Tumblr, forget about it. Because once I actually saw it on screen, I was like, okay, that was cool as shit.
Yeah. And it makes sense in the context of the story. Like it's
Absolutely.
an abandoned military. So it works. Everything about this movie, everything they do to explain these aspects of the mythos just work in a way that I never really knew I wanted them to before. I never knew that I wanted real world explanations for all this stuff. And yet when they give them to me, I eat them up with a spoon,
Yeah, and the movie also ends with one of the great cliffhangers, right? Of an origin movie where you get the reveal of they don't give you the most iconic villain right out of the gate. They give you the tease of the most iconic villain at the end of the movie.
And they do it after a movie that has been so wholly satisfying that you're on cloud nine by the time it's over with, and then they just leave you with that little cherry on top that made the 3-year wait one of the longest, probably the longest wait between movies I've ever experienced in my life.
And boy, we had no idea what to expect from the Joker at that point.
No.
If Nolan could rehabilitate Batman like this, what possible way could he rehabilitate the Joker on cinema or on film? We'll have to just wait and see, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and the ongoing saga for this series will continue next week with The Dark Knight, which will be Nick and I actually going solo because we have a lot to say about our guest duo. We have a lot to say about that one. But Todd, thank you so much for joining us to revisit this movie. I know you mentioned in particular your fondness for this movie. Glad you took time out of your day to join us. Tell the folks what you've got going on at Place to Be Nation Pop and how they might be able to contact you on social media.
Well, if you don't like the Place to Be Nation comics page, you should, and so like it, approve. I will approve of your request unless you are, like I said, a Russian spam bot or a Young Bucks fan. But we will. I'm just kidding. I like Young Bucks fans too. I'm on Twitter at Todd Weber Guitar. We are talking about maybe putting together a Place to Be Nation Comics Twitter, just kind of catch-all page. So I'm sure I'll be responsible for that. So maybe by the time you hear this, you can follow that account. I am currently on Marvel Age podcasts with Nick Duke, Russell Sellers, and Tim Cable, and can be occasionally on Marvel Age Masterclass with Ben Morse as well. But that's my primary focus. But there's a lot I do behind the scenes here at Place to Be Nation that we don't need to bore the listeners with. But
suffice it to say that without Todd Weber, the vast majority of your Place to Be Nation comic content would not exist. Put it that way.
Yes, there is no Hard-Traveling Fanboys without Todd Weber.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, guys. It has been...
And more grammatically accurate, there are no Hard-Traveling Fanboys with Todd Weber.
Well, I think Hard-Traveling Fanboys being is the singular title of the show, so works grammatically.
True, but we are also the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. So it's kind of one of those, gray areas. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm guilty of self-editing perhaps too much at times, or not enough at other times, so who knows. But Todd, thanks for joining us, man. I know Marvel Age is killing it. I know you've been on kind of a hiatus from Conversation Comics, but you kill it on that every time you get it. You and Tim.
Yeah, we got to get that going back in a couple weeks. So yeah, Tim Cable and I had preliminary discussions. It's just a matter of scheduling. We're doing a lot of stuff right now. So boy, thank you for letting me on for Batman Begins. It's one of my favorite films, favorite cinematic experiences because I was on my honeymoon, and again, when you have no expectations and something blows you away like that, it becomes something very, very special.
Absolutely. And I just want to let you know, candidly, while you're on the show, you are the manager, and we have decided amongst ourselves to extend contract. Mr. Fuji actually reached out to us over the weekend. I can tell you this now. He made us a rich offer, but we rejected it on account of the fact that he's dead. So we are sticking by your side, Todd.
I appreciate the loyalty. We'll have to go over the finer points of said contract, and we'll see. There may be some changes to the formatting of this show, where we insert some NBA talk, Sacramento Kings minute, or something like that, just to appease me.
Well, you know, one of my favorite NBA Live 2002 and 3 players was Doug Christie, actually, for his defensive prowess. So we could
Very
probably
good
work on that.
defensive player. Doug Christie has moved back to Sacramento and is now a local radio host.
And one of my favorite NBA Live players of that era was Peja Stojakovic. So there you go.
Great three-point shooter. Well, the 2002-2003 era Kings, up until Chris Weber got hurt, we won't talk about the Lakers series, but because we get a whole nother podcast on that. Yeah, they were a great, all-time great team, and in other circumstances would have been the champions of the whole league, I think. So, but we've been fine.
Sir.
Fine. Nothing. If we could change one thing, if I'm talking myself into a circle because it's making me very upset. So yeah, thank you guys for your love, and we'll see you in the future here on Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break, and when we come back from the other side, we've got reading, watching, we've got rundown. Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Reading and watching.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We offer them to you on two great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, along with Main Event, Survey Says, the Monday Night Wars, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction show, as well as Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver special network podcasts and pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Match of the Week podcasts, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Through the Years, Worldcast, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Center Stage, and Letters from Kayfabe, plus much more. And on our very popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as Talkin' Pop, the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, NBA Team, PTBN Play, Sunday Groove, Breaking Balls, and Lucha Undead.
As well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans.
With the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversations, Geek and Sassy, and Marvel Age podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows, plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback today. All these shows, plus others, available at PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, and thehistoryofwrestling.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
All right, moving on to the mailbag. So I'll see you in Asheville next week. Headlock on Hunger, headlockonhunger.org. This is from Gregory Bruce Phillips in Troy, Alabama. I bet when his mama gets mad at him, she says, Gregory Bruce, get your ass in the house. Hi, JR. Love your work on Access TV every week. Thank you, sir. Who do you see winning this year's G1, and do you have a match in mind you'd like to see for the IWGP title at Wrestle Kingdom in January? I'll try to answer these as best I can. The G1, I'm thinking Okada has a shot at winning that. And I think he'll be in the debate without question. So Okada winning would not be a shocker, I guess, for a lot of people, but it seems like it might be the thing to do. Wrestle Kingdom main event, I just hope the Omega still got the title, or Cody, one of the two. because I'd like to see where they go with it. I really believe that New Japan's done a nice job of putting a title on somebody and letting that person evolve the title and grow within the title as their character. Certainly Okada did that over all those title defenses in New Japan. I believe overall, quite frankly, Gregory Bruce Phillips, that there are too many titles in the business in general, and it waters down the ones that you want to mean something. So, but we'll see. Hope you check out the show this weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. Remember, Friday night on Access, the entire 2 out of 3 fall classic between Omega and Okada. 2 out of 3 falls, nothing edited out, everything on Friday night leading into the live show on Saturday at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific.
Oh, wow! There is a nice throwback to the early days of the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. We've really enjoyed this one, Nick. Talked about Batman Begins with our good friend, the manager, Todd Weber. Great first portion of the show, a larger portion of the show, Nick. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, definitely. A little bit oversized, but it warrants it for an event such as Dark Knight.
Absolutely. No, the thing is, when Todd's around, no show can outstay its welcome as far as I'm concerned. We had a great time, enjoyed the conversation about one of our favorite movies for all three of us. So, fun time there. But now it's time to get to our regular weekly segments, and we're going to start off with our weekly look at the news and notes in the world of comics. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start with the rundown.
Welcome to the rundown, where we talk some comic news. Welcome to the rundown, where we talk about movies too.
The biggest news this week in the world of comic books, at least in our estimation, some people's mileage may vary, or mileage, if you will. The biggest news to us is something that actually counteracts the name of our fantasy comics draft,
Well,
which, as everyone knows, is, Nick?
Well, for the last time we had it, it was the second biennial Place to Be Nation Pop Fantasy Comics, Peter David Memorial Fantasy Comics Draft, presented by a hypothetical DC Comics online unlimited subscription service.
That's correct. Well, now, we talked last episode, I think, and the one before that, about this DC Universe proprietary streaming service that has been announced, but with very few details. Except that we were getting original series in the form of Titans, Harley Quinn, and Swamp Thing, and the Doom Patrol also. Well, now, this past week, we got a press kit literally sent to us by DC Comics telling us about what we can expect a little bit from this service. There's still some finer details that need to be sussed out. We're actually hoping to become beta testers for this. No idea if that's going to happen or not. But nonetheless, DC Universe will include comic books, which is a big thing that had not been confirmed to this point. Comic books, movies, TV shows on demand. And according to the initial press kit that was sent out, there's going to be an archive of, quote, thousands of comic books from a curated list of thousands of comic books. There will be the, of course, original series that we mentioned a moment ago. There will be selections of DC movies, DC animated movies, and we've got a list of those, actually, that, quite honestly, folks, if you're interested in the list, contact me on social media, and I will give you the list of sample material that was sent out to the media about this that will be on this. I'm not going to go through it right now because I don't want to look it up on my phone. But it's, stuff like Batman Begins, stuff like the Richard Donner Superman films, all that's going to be on the service. And it's going to be that we really haven't seen, because Marvel Unlimited is a strictly comic book service, an endless supply, or not endless, but you know what I mean, a very comprehensive supply of comic books. There's no TV or element to it, and in fact, that will be encompassed in a separate streaming service. This is something we've not seen, and I still haven't fully grasped, Nick, how they're going to integrate this all into one app. On something like a Roku, for instance, or a PlayStation or something like that. But nonetheless, all that aside, it's going to include TV, movie, comic books, a store aspect, a merchandise aspect, and I don't know how it's all going to interact, but certainly, and we'll get into a little more of the finer details of this in a moment, but certainly an exciting announcement, I think, on the surface for DC fans and fans of comic book media.
No doubt. I mean, we still need to see some of the finer details in terms of, exactly what content's going to be on there. A price point, most notably, has not been talked about.
Yes.
That's arguably the most important detail, and they haven't really disclosed that at this point. But nonetheless,
I wonder if they don't know. I wonder if they haven't decided on it yet.
I would have to think that a pricing strategy was one of the things they developed, at a corporate level, because that's something that has to be signed off on, and you have to do your cost analysis of at what point this thing starts to make a return on investment and all that. But no doubt, very exciting. Something we've looked forward to for a long time, and now we know a little bit more about it. Can't wait to hear more for sure.
Yes, and now there is an element of it that I think on the back end is, from a purely comic book perspective anyway, the word curated is thrown around a lot. And also, if you look deep into the press packet, there's talk of it being a rotational model, not unlike Netflix, where, as you know, with Netflix, stuff comes on, cycles in and out, except for their original material. Now, there is concern from you, I know in particular, Nick, about the comic book material cycling in and out, because this is material that is owned by DC Comics and theoretically could be built into an archive similar to what we have with Marvel Unlimited, which does not, to my knowledge, remove existing comics from the archive. It just builds upon the existing.
It is an ever expanding library of comics. Yes.
Yes. So, or another comparison you can make, the WWE Network, which does deal with video content and has an ever-expanding, for just $9.99, at least for now, an ever-expanding list of all the wrestling, basically.
Yes, all the wrestling in history, yeah. Yeah, it's challenging, because on the one hand, I'm very excited for what we're going to get. But on the other hand, I feel like words such as curated and rotating are DC leaving the door open, basically leaving themselves an out to not make this service what it could be. So I'm so thrilled that a service like this is here, but now it's time to start the push to make it what it needs to be, and that is the comprehensive one-stop shop for DC Comics publishing history. Now, am I expecting every single comic they've ever published ever to be available on day one? No, of course not. That's not realistic. Marvel Unlimited wasn't that. Marvel Unlimited is still filling in gaps, but the difference is they are filling in gaps and not creating new ones when they fill in old ones. And that is my biggest concern. Not just with the comics content, by the way. I also think that rotating video content is a bit silly, because unlike Marvel, who has licensed a lot of its, characters and concepts out to various production studios, the vast majority of DC's video library is owned by Warner Brothers. There is no added licensing cost. Literally, the only cost to provide these subscribers is the cost of server space, which, as Tim Cable and I were kind of making the point in the legendary Place to Be Nation Comics group chat, server space for a multi-million/billion-dollar corporation like Warner Brothers should be a drop in hat in terms of an expense. To me, curated and rotational is only being used just because. I honestly can't see a legitimate justification for it.
Well, I would say that something like HBO Go still uses a rotational model.
And shouldn't. I'm not,
And
I'm not.
my point being, I think that's also, isn't HBO also owned by Warner Brothers?
I have no idea.
I don't know either. I feel like I read that somewhere, but maybe not. Maybe I'm nuts. But I think that the thing that people of our particular ilk, I think, have been a little bit spoiled in that we know what it can be because of the WWE, which people don't want to talk about because it's wrestling. Ha ha ha! Wrestling, pro wrestling. Ha ha! But here's the thing: that pro wrestling thing gives more value to its buying customer than, by far, by the way, than any other streaming service that has been created.
Mm-hmm.
There's more hours of entertainment. There's more hours of content. So from a pure customer standpoint, that's the model we should want everything to go to. Netflix, Hulu, everything. We should want that out of our stream. And while all that isn't possible due to licensing, as you pointed out, at the very least, that should be the ideal. And to your point, I mean, I'm not quite as quote worried about it as you are, just because I'll be happy to have it there. Well, you have from the get-go, but I completely get your point. It is something that if WWE can do it, why can't Warner Brothers do it?
Yeah, I mean, and WWE, again, Warner Brothers is not having to license any of that content. I mean, when they run into licensing issues with music or whatever, they replace it. And yes, it's altered content, but the content itself is still there. You're able to follow these stories and these characters. And I don't know why DC can't do the same thing.
Now,
to me,
go ahead.
To me, it just feels arbitrary, like a decision they just decided to make and don't really have a solid reasoning behind it. And
go ahead.
And from the comics thing, it's all well and good until you're in the middle of reading something and the run gets pulled off of there. You know?
Yep. That's a great point. And here's the other aspect. We have talked in the past, and I've talked about because I haven't ever been able to interview anyone about this, and I haven't read this even talked about in interviews. Maybe it has been, and that's something we can ask Ben Morse about. I don't know what the payment scale is with Marvel Unlimited as it regards creators on titles. I know creators get a cut of trade paperback sales and graphic novels. I don't know how they divvy that up with regards to Marvel Unlimited or Comixology Unlimited, because how do you calculate who's reading what and what money is going away and all that stuff. So I think that's a legitimate concern in regards to streaming comics, is how do you divvy up creator rights on things and the money that they're due for using their creation, using their work. But I don't know. Maybe those answers have been solved legally. So the other aspect of that is, I don't know about you, Nick, but I haven't bought a single Marvel trade since getting Marvel Unlimited.
Nope, not one.
Because they're all there.
Yep.
So perhaps this is another aspect of this, is DC doesn't want to completely dry up its trade and graphic novel sales among the niche audience, in addition to the people they're trying to sell it to in bookstores. And so their thought is, well, we can release some stuff here that maybe we're not planning on reprint soon. We want to save stuff that off of here that we're planning on trying to sell in trade and graphic novel. I don't know. That's just devil's advocate stuff on my end.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility, but I would also suggest that is going to be behind the curve in terms of where the industry is going and where, where media, entertainment media in general is going. The streaming, all you can consume model is what is taking over the industry, for better or for worse. And I think DC, the success of DC Universe is going to be driven by a niche audience, because it's a niche product. It is a product aimed at fans who are very specifically fans of DC Comics and who would be interested in such a thing. And to me, you need to wow those people. You need to blow us away. You need to provide us with a reason to keep coming back and paying the monthly subscription over and over again. Because, I mean, as it stands now, once I watch all the original content, I own the first 2 seasons of Batman the Animated Series on DVD. I don't know that I especially care about watching the Linda Carter Wonder Woman. So, if the comics component underwhelms, then what is my reason for really needing to keep this service? It's not like the WWE Network where they are providing me with live content every month that used to cost me literally 5 times that amount.
Mm-hmm.
You need to take a customer-first approach. And to me, the easiest way to do that is to make sure your library of content is unparalleled. Because as great as Marvel Unlimited is, DC has the added benefit of almost 30 years of publishing history they can leverage. And yes, I understand numerous challenges in digitizing comic books from the 30s and 40s. I get all that. I'm not hung up on that aspect. But what I'm saying is their depth of their publishing library reaches further back chronologically. It delves into things like Vertigo and mature titles that Marvel Unlimited does not feature, by the way. You have an opportunity here for DC not to just do an answer to Marvel Unlimited, but to do an answer to Marvel Unlimited that is better than Marvel Unlimited. And yes, I understand there is video content that Marvel Unlimited doesn't play with. I get that. My argument to that is I would rather DC Comics focus on being great at some of at one or two of these things than be good at all of these things.
Yeah, and I think from my standpoint, I'm pretty stoked that we're getting the TV and aspect just because more bang for my buck, helping me from having to track down. And some of this stuff hasn't been seen ever in streaming. The Superboy series from the 80s.
And that's fair.
Is one of the things they talked about. The Linda Carter Wonder Woman series, I don't think has been streamed. I could be wrong on that.
I'm not sure. I don't believe it has. But okay, and that's great. But why? But why do you need to pull those things off 6 months down the road?
No, I agree. I sure agree. And then with the comics content, I agree with your point. Again, I've long had reservations about how you compensate writers and artists in an industry that has dicked over writers and artists since the 30s. But that's an issue for another time. As it is, as a fan, I'm excited, but like you, I agree that I want to see this content stay up there and stay. And also, another part of this, Nick, is I think would also help. Maybe this is too. I don't want to piss off any people that might be comic book shop owners because we love you guys and it's been the life of the industry for so long. But I feel like this would help propel the industry towards some very difficult decisions that I think are going to have to be made in the near future regarding the feasibility of single issue comic books at $3.99 a pop.
Well, not just that; it also provides an opportunity to get their foot in the door of comics without having to walk into the door of a local comic shop, which can be intimidating, and you don't really know what you're looking for.
Yep.
If you provide an expansive library, the publishing history, people can pick and choose their moments that they want to try and figure out what works for them. But if there are entire huge gaps and eras and characters and titles that aren't on there, you're not providing an opportunity for people to find their own entry point. And that is my biggest thing.
There's a chance of synergy on a level that we've never seen with comics, right? Where judging by Twitter and the reaction to these announcements, most of the Twitterverse that I've seen is excited about the TV and movie aspect of this. So let's say that like general Joe Q public, who's not a hardcore comic book fan, buys this DC service because they want to see this Titans show or they want to see all this DC content on there. Let's say, for instance, the Snyder Cut folks. They want to see all this TV and movie content on there. They get it. Let's say they like Titans, or they don't like Titans, or they like Swamp Thing, and they say, "Okay, I want to read about Swamp Thing." They should then go into the comic section, find Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, or Scott Snyder's Swamp Thing, or whoever's Swamp Thing they want to read, and kind of maybe they get hooked on comics for life.
That's actually one aspect. You were wondering how the comics bit would be integrated into televisions. That's one thing they've actually talked about in a couple of interviews is comics will naturally, so if you're watching an episode of Swamp Thing and you rate it 5 stars, then it will actually recommend to you in the app a run of Swamp Thing comics. Right there. It's going to have tie-in between the video and comics content, where you can lead from one into the other and vice versa, if you so choose.
And I think one element that I'm kind of wondering about is how that would actually, in practicality, be done on like an Apple TV or a Roku or something. So you'd be able to read the comic on that?
Yes. There's gonna be a comic reader built into the app, and you're gonna have the panel by panel layouts that will present themselves on a screen in high definition, and you'll be able to scroll through the panels. I'm not sure if there will be page views available, just because it would look weird, with that orientation of a television. But my understanding is that panel by panel will be a thing on televisions.
Very cool, very cool. And we will actually be incorporating that into our Hard-Traveling Fanboys app as well, that we'll be putting on the Roku near now, actually.
And our app also will have a store aspect. It will have a store where you can go right there and your size bottle and your dosage strength of Blue Chew.
Now, Blue Chew, I don't know about you, Nick, but since I started using it a week ago, I have had a lot more success in the bedroom. What about you?
I don't know that I've had more success in the bedroom, but I've had a lot more success in my private time in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me, but they're kind of one and the same, So
right.
Blue Chew has certainly helped me, and I'd encourage all of our listeners to check out Blue Chew. It's such a great product. I don't even know how to describe it any more than that. And you know what's a great time to use Blue Chew, Nick? When you're laying on a Casper mattress.
On a Casper mattress. You know what? When my favorite time to lay on a Casper mattress is?
What's that?
Right after I've drank a few Dr. Robots from Monday Night Brewing Company in Atlanta. That's the delicious and fruity Dr. Robot from Monday Night Brewing Company in Atlanta, Georgia.
Absolutely. And, it's also a good time if you have a significant other in your life and you're trying to figure out a way to celebrate some good. You might want to take your Blue Chew. You might want to get your Casper mattress ready. You might want to drink you a Dr. Robot for some liquid courage. And then you might want to call 1-800-FLOWERS.
1-800-FLOWERS, or what about $8? Come, Greg, have you seen all the great gifts, the jewelry, the clothing over at $8.com where everything costs, you guessed it, $8.
$8. That's incredible, Nick.
It really is. And then, once all that's done and she's happy with you, maybe she'll get you a gift. Like tickets to your favorite sporting event. You know what the best way to get those is? SeatGeek. You can go on the SeatGeek app. You can look up ticket prices. You can see how the trends are moving. You can pick your seat. You can tell whether it's a deal or not. Got an exclusive deal score on every purchase that helps you to evaluate and get the most bang for your buck. So yes, Blue Chew, Casper mattresses, Dr. Robot,
1-800-FLOWERS,
$8.com, and SeatGeek. What more could you need?
And if the sporting event that you want to do is maybe a UFC fight or boxing or even a wrestling show, and maybe you don't feel like going out, maybe you get sick after you got your tickets, you can always watch it on the Fight app. That's on the FITE.
Fight like you mean it. Yes. And if you decide you don't want to do that, you can always hop over to Place to Be Nation Pop and listen to the longest running weekly episodic comic book podcast in all Place to Be Nation. Yep. See, folks, that's what this show is all about. Shameless plugs and catchphrases.
You know what that was, Nick? That was a synergistic approach to disrupting the paradigm.
Yep, we were really executing content integration across multiple channels and users.
Oh, that was good. We do have another item on the rundown, by the way, folks. We have not completely forgotten this, although, admittedly, I actually had. There was an announcement this week that I don't have any details on in front of me, but the Sony Spider-Man spin-off movie universe, which is still apparently a thing,
not for much longer,
has made another announcement, and that is that there will be a movie made about Michael Morbius, the living vampire, and it will be starring Jared Leto.
Okay, so hopefully
there's a couple of things to unpack here.
Yeah. Hopefully, at the very least, this means we're not getting a goddamn Jared Leto Joker movie because nobody wants that. So hopefully, Jared Leto Joker is head on. 2, I don't believe for a second this movie ever actually happens. this whole Sony Spider-Man spin-off universe, I just, we've read about Silver and Black having troubles. What are the others rumored for a while besides those two?
Oh, gosh.
There was something we talked about a while back that I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen, and I can't even remember what it was. Kraven the Hunter, maybe? Was that the other one?
Kraven the Hunter has been rumored, and then so the Silver and Black, of course. Mm-hmm. There was a rumor. Of course, we're getting Venom, and I can't remember what the other one was. Yeah, I know there was another one though, but can't recall.
Point being, I don't think this ever happens, and I don't care if it does. I don't know this.
Okay, here's the deal with this one. I agree with your point about the Leto Joker movie. Hopefully that never happens, and this could help facilitate
Let me just say, I have never. Okay, I think part of it is that I didn't grow up reading Spider-Man in the 90s, so I don't get it. I have never understood your attachment to Michael Morbius.
Well, I'll tell you. Michael Morbius was one of those like characters that would pop up in stuff like I can't remember what it was, like not Living Midnight Sun, I think was the name of the book in the 90s.
Yep.
And he was just kind of one of those like cool, dark, edgy characters, quote Kewl, Kuhl,
Mm-hmm.
Kuhl, quite frankly, dark and edgy characters in the 90s that I loved as a kid. And so also he was on the animated series in the 90s.
He was.
And had a cool role on there. I loved the idea that he was this vampire that like really wasn't a bad guy. He was just compelled by his urges and really wanted not to be like he was. So I thought that was kind of cool. Of all of the Spider-Man spin-off characters, other than Venom, I think this is the one that could work without Spider-Man. We talked about how Venom is going to struggle leaving Spider-Man out of it. We talked about you can't really have a movie involving Spider-Man's rogues gallery without Spider-Man. Morbius is a character that, to me, never needed Spider-Man. He's a character because his basic story is a living vampire that, has a good heart underneath, but has these urges that he has to fight back constantly. That's a compelling movie you can make about, any vampire, basically. And he's got this kind of anti-hero element to him. I think that movie could work. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm like you. I doubt that it actually does happen. But I think that it is a movie that could work on its own with no attachment to Spider-Man, as opposed to things like Carnage or Kraven or even Silver and Black that don't have the same appeal without Spider-Man involved necessarily, or at least without a tie to the Spider-Man mythos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. This just does not generate any strong feelings in me either way, other than a great sense of relief that Jared Leto's Joker is likely dead.
Yes. And I think Leto is a good casting choice for Morbius, even though I'm not a big Leto fan.
Mm-hmm.
I think he visually fits the concept of Morbius to me. So could be fun. We'll see if it happens. With that's the end of the rundown. So, gosh, well, let's not fiddle fart around, Nick. Let's get right into our recurring segment where we talk about what we've been reading and watching. It's a segment we like to call Reading and Watching.
Mm-hmm.
Reading and watching. What have you been reading and watching?
And Nick, you been reading anything?
No.
Greg, you've been reading anything? Yes. So I, through Comixology, have purchased. I had purchased it actually some time ago. The Flash number 47, the kickoff to the Flash War, and I finally had a chance to sit down and read it about a little less than a week ago. And this is by Josh Williamson and Howard Porter. And many people have listened to our early episode of this. You might remember that both Nick and I were pulling the Flash at the beginning of the Rebirth Initiative, and it was the one of the Rebirth books that kind of sputtered out of the gates, in our opinion. And so we dropped it. I think I might have given it one more issue than Nick gave it, or maybe one fewer, actually, before I dropped it. And the art was not very good, in my opinion. And so I kind of dropped it and wasn't terribly interested in it. Well, fast forward 2 years, and I decided to pick up this Flash War because I heard so many good things about this first issue. I had read some of the previews. It's heavily involving Wally West, the pre-Flashpoint Wally West, who's a character is near and dear to my heart. So I thought, you know what? I had trepidation because I was afraid they were going to present Wally as a villain. So but I read the first issue finally. Thought it was. I still had trepidation about it because of the presentation of Wally being a little bit heelish, a little bit hot-headed and irrational. Yeah, but the way that Josh Williamson tells the story and the way that Howard Porter's art works with it, very compelling, so compelling that I went out today, actually, on Comixology and purchased issues 48 and 49 and I read those back-to-back. It took me about an hour to read them because of my odd way of reading comics. So I read them both, and got to say, I'm loving it. It's been exciting. It's been genuinely surprising. It's been compelling. The artwork has been very interesting. I think I thought issue 49, the artwork suffers just a little bit in some of the faces, but overall, Howard Porter is doing a great job. The writing from Josh Williamson has been on point. The characterizations have been on point. And most importantly, it's just been really thrilling to read. Like, I can't wait to read the next. I got to give credit to Joshua Williamson, who I was kind of rough on at the beginning of the Rebirth Initiative. He's really got a handle on this now, it seems like, on The Flash, and the mythos, and particularly the main villain or one of the main characters in this arc, which is Hunter Zolomon, a.k.a. Zoom, who was a Jeff Johns creation, one of my favorite DC villains, actually, that we don't talk about a ton on the show. But he is kind of making his grand appearance here and really making a return into the life of Wally West. And with it are returning the memories of Wally West's children. And that's actually the overarching story of the Flash War, is Wally remembering his children for the first time and the life that he had with them. And now it's no longer a matter of, well, I have a relationship that's lost. It's a matter of my kids are lost and they're out there somewhere and I have to save them. And so Wally's going to do anything it takes to save kids. Barry is trying to stop Wally from making the same mistake he made with Flashpoint. And there are all kinds of Easter eggs in here for DC fans. Hints of things that once were that, have been pictured that may possibly be brought in again at some point or brought back from the past. We've seen images of Impulse. We've seen images of Max Mercury, both of Wally's. There's this really heartbreaking scene with Wally and his kids where he's trying to teach them how to use their powers, and then it flashes to Wally being informed that they're basically trapped in the Speed Force, being constantly tortured. And it's just this incredible mix of emotions and nostalgia and a really, really incredibly well done story to this point. So highly recommend anybody to go out there and check out the Flash War. I honestly think anybody that picks it up right now, it's very, very Jeff Johns in it.
Interesting. It certainly makes me intrigued to check it out at some point.
And other than that, I haven't read anything. Now, watching. None of our stories are on right now. I mean, we both did in Cloak and Dagger. I have watched a lot of Krypton, but I kind of got stagnant the last week on account of an out of town trip, which we'll talk about in a minute. And and I haven't even started on Iron Fist or Defenders. But we did watch.
Now, Greg, in true to our we'll do anything the fans request mode, I think we know what we had to do off the page at some point soon.
Yes. Thanks for that, Mike.
At FrankFran29 on Twitter, by the way.
Yes. Or at you bastard. Nonetheless, we did watch a movie, actually, at your Duke compound.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the animated film available on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Batman Return of the Caped Crusader.
Yes.
This is the animated film from, I think it's 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the return of Adam West and Burt Ward as the voices of Batman and Robin, along with Julie Newmar as the voice of Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the return of the Batman 66 canon, basically.
Yeah, that universe.
So, yeah, it picks up, well, just like it's an episode of the old series from the 60s. And really like a sequel to the movie, actually. This is the Batman 66 movie. And I just thoroughly enjoyed this, Nick. I really did. I thought it was a funny movie. I thought it was
extremely clever. Like, I was not... I mean, you know, that's the thing is, when you watch any of the Batman 66 stuff as an adult, you're just struck by how, like, the comedic writing on it is really well done. And I was worried going into it that modern writer would be able to replicate that same tone and feel, but those concerns were unfounded.
Yeah, and not only was the comedy clever, but I even kind of sucked into the story of the multiple evil Batmen that take over Gotham City. Yeah,
evil Batman treating everybody like crap was pretty entertaining, I gotta say, especially since it's Adam West's voice doing it.
Mm-hmm. And everybody's voice work was really good here. The impersonators they had to do the old villains crew of the Joker and Penguin was great. Julie Newmar was great as Catwoman. Burt Ward was great as Robin, and Adam West just dynamite as Bruce Wayne. So yeah, check this one out on Amazon Prime. It's streaming on there. Really funny, really good. I'm excited to watch the sequel to it, Nick, that had Two-Face in it.
Yes, William Shatner's Two-Face, yes.
Man, I'd actually forgotten about that. Oh, that's got to be good.
Yes.
And so that's all we got for watching. I do have one element that I want to add in, and that is playing. Oh. Because as of last night, Nick, you don't even know this, but I have purchased the Guardians of the Galaxy Season Pass game on PlayStation 4, and I have been playing it a little bit. I've gotten about, I don't know how far into the first chapter, but just beyond the demo length of the first chapter. Gotta say, man, I was not expecting it to be as movie-like as it is, in terms of it's got a killer soundtrack that would be perfect in a James Gunn movie. You got a little Hall & Oates in there, for instance. You Make My Dreams Come True. Excellent stuff here. Good voice work from the actors. I'm a little up and down on the guy that does Peter Quill. I don't know that he's necessarily trying to do a Chris Pratt impression, which probably is a good thing, but I haven't completely bought into his voice for the character yet. The guy whoever does right voice is amazing. He does a great job. Thanos pops up. You see Yondu very briefly from so far. There's a lot of good stuff here from Telltale Games. And a little bit more immersive in terms of action gameplay than I've come to expect from Telltale. So a little bit of evolution in that regard. So far, so good. I'll keep the listeners updated as I progress through the game.
Outstanding. You know, I own the game, but haven't had a chance to play it yet. But I'm looking forward to doing that at some point.
Absolutely. Well, that brings an end to reading and watching. And my goodness, I think we've just about exhausted every topic there is, except, you know what time it is, Nick? I've looked at my digital clock that actually has been mounted on the wall, and there's a minute on the clock, Nick, and I think it's time for the Wrestling Minute. So we went to Daytona, Florida this past weekend. Nick, myself, and our good friend Andrew Chandler Frazier Garner the 17th, and we went to watch CEO Cross New Japan Pro Wrestling, in a New Japan Pro Wrestling event put on and booked by Kenny Omega, and just had a blast of a time, Nick.
We really did. Just an outstanding show. Variety from top to bottom, and a close to the show with the last two matches that absolutely delivered in every way, including an amazing main event that just made the trip worth it.
Absolutely. Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, the Golden Lovers, getting a victory over Los Ingobernables de Japón, a.k.a. Tetsuya Naito and Hiromu Takahashi.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting stuff and a lot of potential singles matches that could spin out of that in the future.
Mm-hmm. And my greatest is this event was successful, and we will continue to see East Coast-based New Japan events in the coming years.
Absolutely. With that being said, that is the end of the Wrestling Minute. We only went just a tad over, and we hope that you guys join us a week from now for our look at the landmark 10th anniversary of The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Dark Knight month continues with a look at Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight next week. We will, of course, be following that with a look at The Dark Knight Rises. We'll be joined by a special guest for that. And then we will close out this month with a countdown of our 5 favorite scenes in the Dark Knight trilogy, and we'll have a special guest for that one as well.
Yep. Absolutely. So with all that being said, hit me up at NickDuke87, hit him up at GPhillips8652. Let us know your thoughts on any of the topics we've discussed today. And until next time, stay classy there.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, 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 Hard-Traveling Fanboys,